Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to the fourth round of the Evolution Sim Racing GT4 Championship here at the wonderfully technical Magny Cours circuit here in central France. 17 corners around this 4.4 kilometre circuit ahead of the drivers tonight. In our usual closed qualifying format, ahead of two 30-minute sprint races with no mandatory pit stops. So, a circuit, Dara, that has some very interesting characteristics and actually few clear overtaking opportunities. And with this being the first time ESR has arrived here at Magny Cours, some of our drivers may find tonight particularly challenging in comparison to some other circuits as we approach the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, it's a really nitty-gritty little circuit here at Magny Cours. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers approach it, especially with the two 30-minute races that we're going to have this evening. Suzuka, Road Atlanta, the Hungaroring, maybe more used, more familiar with the drivers. Magny Cours hasn't been on many high-profile real-life calendars for quite some time, and it isn't really used too much on the iRacing system. But nice to see it here, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the drivers can adapt to this one.
Completely right, and the guys are lapping as we speak. And there's just a few moments left before these laps start to count as we head into qualifying. But before that, a few formalities to get through as always. So first up, the sponsors of this series. So thank you very much to Kame in particular. So Kame has been one of the primary sponsors from the start of Evolution Sim Racing. And those guys provide all of the driver trophies and some of the sponsorship that makes all of this possible on both Mondays and Thursdays. So big thanks to Kame. And then we also have the GP2 group, Keen and Eco Energy and Medius, which come from some of the drivers that we have in the server. I believe it's Hossein Sarakadesla, and it'll be Chris Keenan, also with the MRC Endurance team. And then it's Russell Jakes, and those three giving what they can to help sponsor this series. And as I say, to make it all possible. And coming from Kame, the wonderful driver trophies that so many of our drivers will have on display nearby their sim rigs. So we have 5 trophies on offer to the top 5 drivers in each of our classes across the Elite, the Premier and the Evo divisions. And then also trophies on offer to all 3 of the drivers as part of the top 5 winning teams in each class. So a whole host of chances on offer to get your hands on one of the first ESR GT4 Championship trophies. Looking ahead then to the standings as we approach into the 4th round of the season. So first, we'll have a look at the Elite Championship standings. So it's William Humphrey who leads the way for Dennett Racing. He's on 331 points and managed to have a very successful evening this time last week, opening in the sprint race, getting a P1 finish, and then chasing down Justin Rem all the way until the pit stops. And then it kind of unfolded for him a little bit. I think from memory, he finished roughly 5 seconds off the back of Justin by the end of that 45-minute feature race. But that's still enough to see him lead ahead of Justin Rem, who sits in P2. As you can see there, reverse order for Justin, a P2 and a P1 for Grid and Go Esports. Only 17 points off the back of William Humphrey. However, I don't believe Justin is with us tonight, so an opportunity for William to extend at the top of the championship. Justin Denobrega in P3 at the moment, but again, a bigger gap now, 55 points away from the top 2 for the South African driver of RDSA Esports. And up next, it's Ryan Ottens for Alpha One Esports. He's on 253 points, and again, got himself on the podium in that 3rd place finish. I'll run off the top 5 and then we'll have a little bit of a summary. And that's Ben Childcraft, the leading Spondex CDM esports driver. 246 points for him. And he had the best... No, he didn't, sorry. He had a P5 last week, but he got a P4 in Road Atlanta the previous week. So let's keep an eye out on Ben to see if he can get himself on the podium. What do you expect, Dara, from these guys, particularly looking at the top 5?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how Tristan can do tonight. Of course, he hasn't had a win yet this season. He's got the most points of anybody in any of the categories to not have a win so far. So I think he's going to be looking for that, especially if the field is a little bit lighter than it has been in the last couple of weeks. William Humphrey, though, he's looked so good, hasn't he? 3 wins, 2 second places, and that's why he's at the top of the tree, and that's why he's got, he's averaging over 110 points a week at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So Luke Lucchese in the top 6 with 1 podium to his name. And then we come down outside the top 6. We've got Jimmy Vyman, Jay Corley in the Aston Martin, Jeremy Chioka in the Mercedes, although he's got a Porsche logo there next to his name. Jeremy Orlemans, definitely in the Porsche, in the top 10. And then it's Sebastian Bonnet and Ian Stitchbury, who are rounding off the top 12. Ian didn't attend the second round, but I'm sure he's with us tonight for the session this evening. Now we'll take a look at the final standings.
Mike Murphy, who leads the way after an absolutely stellar week last time out at the Hungaroring, won both of the races, picked up all 150 points, and that has shot him to the top of the championship. 55 points he leads by after what Stephen Donnelly would likely call a subpar weekend for him. Only displays that put himself in 6th, and in the end, in 8th out there, 6th and 8th then for Stephen Donnelly, as I look down my standings graphic. But it means that he only has that 1 point lead to Bas Schliestra. Bas, of course, having that great recovery drive at Road Atlanta after not really qualifying very well. The 3 races meant that he could progress through the field, ending up with a win on the final race of the night. So he's now really in this battle, particularly for P2. Martin Kenyon doing a good job as well. 3 second places for the season so far, and he's just ahead of Rob Pickle, who's got 1 podium on the season, but really is looking quite consistent. Rob Smith isn't far behind him, and Hussein Sarakadesla are the other drivers over 200 points. And we have 7 drivers over 200 points, which meaning or showing how close this championship is going to be. Robin Aston and Josh Ostick 8th and 9th, but don't count out Jean-Francois Chiquet. He's 10th, despite winning the opening 2 races of the season. 100 points back at Suzuka. With this race format that we're going to be seeing tonight, we'll see if he can replicate that feat once again. But he has had a horrible last couple of weeks, being caught up in too many incidents for his own liking, and he's got a lot of ground to make up. We'll see what he can do and if he can get any points. But at the moment in the championship, he's being chased down by Henry Kuhlen and Jonas Larsson, who are inside the top 12.
Yeah, I think some of these guys, at least from my perspective, are actually going under the radar a little bit in this championship. You know, when I think the likes of Francois, the likes of Ludbrook and Humphrey up there in Elite, we've seen a lot of those guys on track, a lot of battles and whatnot. Some of these guys, though, going under the radar, and a great pick out there for Jean-Francois Chiquet, who is probably the only guy with a race win under his belt so far, who's not, well, he's in the top 10. But I think anyone else who's got a race win is probably right up there. So let's keep our eyes on him and see if he can bounce back from some disappointing results, I think you would be the first to admit, last week and the week before at Road Atlanta. So the Evo standings next then. And as we just said, it's Francois Brandet who leads the way. He's had an amazing start to the season, yet to finish outside the top 5 in class. 3 race wins, 2 podiums, a P4 and a P5. See the Frenchman on 359 points. We have Francois along with us, as always, on the driver cams, so we'll keep an eye on for him and see how he gets on. John Ludbrook not too far behind, though. 52 points. Enough of a swing to pick up those points this evening if all was to go wrong for Francois. For Camé GP2 McLaren, currently on 307 points, and likewise 4 podiums to his name. But just that opening round in Suzuka is really the difference at the moment between him and Francois. Dale Williams, a debutant to ESR, who's made a good start in the Evo class. 1 DNF to his name, but some podiums nonetheless. He's on 276 points, so slightly closer to John as John is to Francois, and definitely not out of it yet. None of these drivers really out of it yet. There's still over 6 races left to go in the championship season. Luis Nevea next in P4 for Flatline Racing Blue, and Andrew Fellows very close behind him in P5 for Flatline Racing Red. So the 2 Flatline teams going neck and neck for the top 5, and particularly for that driver trophy. You'll see it's the top 5 teams that are highlighted in yellow that will go on to pick up those trophies. He's only 3 points off the back of the sister team. Steve Rubino next for Flat Cap Racing, this time on 211 points. So really, really tight there between P4, 5 and 6 with James Howarth, the other DXT Cyan machine in the BMW. He's had some okay results, particularly toward the start of the season, but a little bit of a drop-off for the form that we saw, particularly from him in TCRs actually last season. He won the championship in the end, and he'll definitely fancy himself to get another podium. Perhaps tonight, but definitely before the end of the season. Matthew Noel next, the Canadian driver from Astra Racing. He's only 1 point behind James Howarth, currently sitting in P8 with 1 podium to his name. Gareth Newton in P9, the second Camé GP2 McLaren driver, and Danny Weir down there in P10. His best result of the season came in the opening race of the opening round. So unfortunately, it's gone a little bit backwards for Danny ever since. But he's with us tonight also on the driver cams. So we'll keep our eyes on him and see how he gets out. Currently P9 in class with only 2 minutes to go in the practice session. And Charlie Stothard, another ESR debutant, along with Dale Williams in Dennett Racing. 152 points for him. And Steve Ewing for Flat Cap Racing also down there in the Porsche on 118 points.
Looking good, isn't it, in that category, especially when you look at the midfield, the likes of Nevea, Fellows, Rubino, where there's only like 8 points between them at the moment. I think that's going to be a really interesting little fight to follow throughout the season. I mean, Luis Nevea's had a bit of an up and down season, had 2 podiums, but then just one other top 5. Andrew Fellows equally, 2 podiums, hasn't finished inside the top 5 apart from those 2 podiums. So going to be interesting, I think, just to see how that little battle flows, and especially if the likes of James Hayworth, Matthew Noel can come into it, and Gareth Newton, because they're not far away. But at the moment for Francois Brander, he's just going to be looking to try and extend that lead at the front. I'm looking at the times in the practice session. If he was in the Premier class, he'd be second at the moment in the practice session, and of course he's in Evo. So he really is showing his worth at the moment in his Porsche, and he's got such a mark on his back. He's got a full second in this practice session to anybody in the Evo class.
Totally right, mate. And you're right, we've got a minute to go. I think that gives you just enough time to give us a quick rundown of the teams.
I can give you a quick rundown of the teams, and the team standings look like this, as I made sure I can have it in front of me.
Sorry, I put you on the spot there.
No, it's okay. My little spreadsheet, I've only got the Drivers' Championship. But I have to say, this team standing is not loading for me, so you might have to start us off.
That's
because
absolutely
I would
fine,
look
mate.
at them if the internet would allow me to.
Yeah, well, you say that, and I'm having the same problem, so it might be server-related here. So let me see if I can just get that going. There we go, they've just appeared for me. So it's DXT at the top. It's Mike Murphy, Stephen Donnelly, and Francois Brandet leading the way on 707 points. 100 points already clear of Dennett Racing. That's William Humphrey, Dale Williams, and Charlie Stothard. Obviously, Dale and William doing very well at the front of their respective classes. And likewise, Mike Murphy. In fact, I'm looking, Francois leading the Evo, Mike Murphy, I think, leading Premier, and then Donnelly close in behind Mike in the Premier Division as well. So 3 drivers there for DXT, who are DXT Emerald, that will be, who are doing very well for themselves. It's Kame GP2 McLaren of Bostock, Newton, and Ludbrook up next, with Tristan Dobruga and Luke Lucchese for RDSA Esports rounding off the top 4. And it's the other DXT machines of Martin Kenyon, James Howarth, and Danny Weir in the top 5. Rob Smith, Andrew Fellows, and Oliver Lumsden of Flatline Racing close in behind. The gap spread from P3 down to P6 quite narrow, less than 60 points really between 4 of those teams, with a bit of a gap now over 100 points, best part of 110 points difference between P2 and P3. It's the Spondex team in P7 and the 2-man machine of Suma GP2 of Hussein Sarakadesla and Robin Aston in P8. It's G League of Florentine Maurad, Jimmy Vyman, and Jean-Francois Chiquet in P9. And we'll finish with the top 10 of Jonas Larsen and Luis Nevea for Flatline Racing Blue. And we've timed that just a little bit off compared to usual, but that's okay. We now find the drivers preparing ahead of this closed qualifying session. And as always, we'll find the guy who's making his way around the track. And let's pick up one of the front runners around the Premier class. That's going to be Mr. Martin Kenyon, as he heads around, a lovely cyan pink livery on that McLaren. So, Dara, I'm not sure about you. As I said earlier, I'm not awfully familiar with this circuit, so I'm going to ride on board with a couple of these guys, get to grips, and particularly let the guys at home watching on get some idea about the flow of this circuit. Obviously very high speed, lots of long straights, and as we said at the start, not too many overtaking opportunities. Thinking really, turn 1 is quite a medium speed corner. We've got the hairpin down at turn 5, hairpin at turn 14 and turn 15, but a lot of opportunity to maybe get some drag down the straight, maybe get in behind the slipstream, and then launch a move into some of these heavy braking zones into the hairpins.
I think it's going to be particularly interesting down at turn number 5 at Adelaide, and it's going to become very clear as we work our way through the evening where that is. You can see the long straight. I think that one of the camera angles we've going to be able to have is basically in the exit of that corner. It's such a tight hairpin at the end of such a long straight, going to be really important to make moves down there. Same down at turn 14, and those two corners are pretty near to each other geographically on the circuit. The track does almost, you'd be forgiven for thinking it looks a little bit like Sepang in the way that it has. Almost a bit in the middle coming back towards the pit lane. But it is a circuit with lots of rotation. It's difficult on the tyres. In the opening part of the lap, we're going to see it here with Martin Kenyon through the opening couple of corners, through this long right-hander called Estoril at turn 3. It leads you onto this back straight. And it's really a high-speed start to the lap before you get to the slower speed middle sector.
Yeah, heading down now, I believe this is down through turn 4, which isn't really a turn, but it classes as one. And now, as you mentioned, it's turn 5 down at Adelaide, one of the heaviest braking zones on the circuit. Maybe aside from turn 15, you've really got to get the car slowed down, rotated, and use that runoff on the left side of the track. The track will be getting better and better and better every time these guys head round. They've got, I think, only 3 laps, 12 minutes to bank a lap, and we're already only with 8.5 minutes to go. And that's a little bit wide there by Martin, so that's not going to do his lap any favours. We can see him now. Is this the second hairpin at turn 9? Flat out now through 10. And then a little kink to the right and the left through the Imola. Well, I wouldn't really call it a chicane, but I guess it kind of is. Let's see. As he heads through here, heavy on the brake, a little bit on the grass there. And I think Martin has just taken this one nice and easy because he knows that he's probably got that off track. Doesn't want to damage the tyres more than he needs to. Let's see what we can pick up here. Luke Lucchese, a guy who will be definitely toward the front of the pack. He's about to set off on his second flying lap.
Yeah, literally flying through those final 2 corners, getting some airtime, I think it's fair to say. 44.6 is his opening lap time. It's gone fastest by nearly 0.3 of a second, and leads our championship leader, William Humphrey, at the moment. It's a good start for him, but he'll be looking to maybe build on this lap time. Coming through turn 3, once again, such a long corner. It just keeps going and going and going. Got to keep the tyres in check, can't go too far wide. Otherwise, you're going to pick up an off-track penalty now, down towards Adelaide corner, turn number 5, through the Kink Golf, which is just here. And then you've got to get to the left-hand side of the circuit, get on the stoppers, and hope the car sticks with you. You can see how tight this hairpin is, a little bit wide from Luke, but he's got through the corner nicely enough, and he'll work his way in towards this middle sector. Towards, as you said, these couple of, quote-unquote chicanes, but they're not really chicanes. They're more just fast sequences of corners, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. And I'm looking now at the timing sheets. We've got Mike Murphy, who sets the provisional pole time in the Premier class, 1.2, basically 1.3 seconds ahead of the nearest rival there, Josh Ostick. And of course, the man at the front of the Evo standings, less than a tenth ahead of Luis Nevea. It's Francois Brandet, the number 28 machine. As you said, this time by Luke Lucchese, was quick enough to beat William Humphrey by 0.2 of a second. And Luke's currently set the fastest Sector 3 time. William Humphrey with the fastest Sector 2, and Jay Corley down there in P6 with the fastest Sector 1. No improvement in the first sector for Lucchese, and I think he's about to bring in his second sector time, so I'll keep you up to date with that as we head now past the 200 metre board, the 100 metre board, and now down into what will be turn 15. We can see the pit building there appearing through the final chicane over 16-17. Let's see Lucchese as he crosses the line. William Humphrey momentarily takes the provisional pole time, and he keeps it as Lucchese crosses the line, sets a 1:45.4, which I don't think was an improvement. 0.2 the difference between William and Luke at the moment.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the other times, though, as we run our way through. Mike Murphy, his current lap time would be good enough to put him 3rd overall, including the elite guys. He'd be ahead of Luke Lucchese. He'd be ahead of Ben Chalcraft. So, mega lap time there from Mike Murphy. Francois Brandet, equally, doing a very good job. Some also very close times. James Bostock just going up into 4th place in that Premier class. 9,000ths behind Jonas Larsson. So, good to see some nice tight battles in the middle of some of these packs, but still quite a few drivers yet to set lap times at the moment, not least in the Premier class. Matt Stace has put a lap time on the board, but not particularly quick, it's fair to say, and I think there's going to be a few drivers who are going to be under pressure to get any kind of lap time on the board before we get to the end of this qualifying session.
Yeah, you might be right, and you're totally true about those two guys. Mike Murphy currently sitting in P4 overall, and it's Francois Brandet of the Evo class in P9. overall. So he will set himself up nicely. He's got about 6 or 7 cars in between him and Nevea when we come to grid up for the start of the race. And we're watching on with Francois now through our driver cams as he heads around and out toward the second sector. Let's see if he can improve. He's gone his fastest sector 1 time of the evening, and what will be, I think this might be his final lap. Let's see how he does when he crosses the line. William Humphrey has just set his personal best and the session best, a 1:44.3, beating the fastest time in the 3rd sector. And Francois Brandet, that is his session over. He crosses the line and sets a purple lap time in the Evo class, a 1:45.2. Let's catch on. Jonas Larsen is about to cross the line. He comes out of the final couple of corners now through 16 and 17. Oh, and gets a bit wobbly there, a bit squirrely on the exit. Took a lot of that entry curb on the left-hand side, and I don't think that's going to be an improvement. Slows down before the line, does Jonas Larsen. Jeremy Litas in the elite class, he's just put himself up into the top 8 in class, but only good enough for P10 on the track, with the likes of Francois and Mike Murphy there separating themselves away from their class. Let's see, we've got Dennis Collar, who's come out late, so we can ride on with him for a couple of laps.
Yeah, I've just noticed as well, Bas Schilstra in his BMW in the Premier class went into P3, so big lap time for him. Of course, he never got that lap away at Road Atlanta, but he was able to come back through the field, not seemingly going to be needing to do something similar this evening, which is good to see from him. But this is Dennis Collar in that unmissably pink entry coming into the final couple of corners. Now, we've seen how difficult this can be, haven't we, with drivers absolutely launching themselves over some of these curbs, because they have to, really. He's taking a little bit less liberty with those curbs. Is that going to affect him too much to the line? He goes, not at all. He goes P6, but look at that, 1,000th of a second
Wow.
behind Jonas Larsen, 9,000ths of a second ahead of James Bostock. Those three for 5th, 6th and 7th. By just 100th of a second.
Yeah, and I'm looking up and down now with some limited drivers. I believe we've got about 40 with us tonight. And particularly looking down there at the Evo class, a good opportunity for some of these guys, even if you perhaps have a nasty incident at the start. In fact, there's Dennis Collar backing out after only 2 laps. However, Mr. Matt Hoyland, who hasn't had the best start of the season, definitely not by his standings, not inside the top 12 in the elite class. He is actually just set off on his first lap, but he's only got 2.5 minutes to do what he can do. So if he can get around this quickly, he might just be able to get a second lap in, but it's not guaranteed. So pressure on Mr. Hoyland as he sets off on his first lap. And as I was saying there about the Evo standings, yeah, so the guys, you know, it's obviously good to have a lot of competition, but these guys could have a big mistake at the start. And as long as they finish the race and cross the line, it doesn't really matter how many laps down they are, because they'll still get points inside the top 10. Less can be said about the Premier class, which is the busiest class that we have this evening. 14 drivers in there. But yeah, for the likes of Danny Weir, who currently finds himself at the back of that division, it's not really the worst result that he'll get, actually, because looking at Danny's results so far this season, he's had 2 P12s, 2 P9s and a P10. So really, he's on for another average point haul that he's been used to so far this season.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting, particularly the Evo in the elite class, by the fact that we have a slightly reduced grid size this evening, that this is a great chance just to pick up points generally on your rivals. Of course, these 2 30-minute race events can only give you 100 points over an evening. The 2 other formats can give you up to 150, so there's slightly less on offer. This evening is Matt Hoyland, almost like a puppy bounding his way over those final couple of corners, and in the end that was Rob Pickle going P13 in Premier class. Hoyland, I don't see on the times, I don't think that lap ended up being valid for him.
No, well, he completely cut the final chicane, so even if he got an off track earlier, that slingshot over the last chicane would have certainly undone that lap time, and crucially, he's not got enough time to go around again. So that will be Matt Hoyland starting down in P38 overall. He'll be behind James Peace, so he's got a fellow elite driver alongside him, but that's not what you want to see. Matt's had a bit of a struggle to the start of both of his championships. I mean, he arrived later than he would usually like, I think, so he's probably been under a little bit of pressure to arrive. But obviously there we saw Rob Pickle, who's arrived a little bit later than the rest of the guys, but still managed to put in a pretty decent lap time. Only 4/10 away from pole in class, but currently P30 overall. And he's still pushing here, but he's only got 10 seconds to go. maybe a little bit more practice, but he's definitely not going to set another lap time, and that will conclude qualifying.
Well, and it gives us quite an interesting running order, I think, in all of the categories. Of course, Humphrey doing a good job. Mike Murphy, as you split them out there on the tower. Mike Murphy, incredible job to be where he is. But, you know, our leader in the Evo as well, doing a stunning job up in P8.
Totally right. Well, let's have a quick rundown on the grid before we get underway for the opening race of this evening. 2 30-minute races sharing equal points for these drivers tonight, and we will have that reverse grid opportunity, which we didn't have this time last week. So it's William Humphrey for Dennett Racing, who secures another pole position, a 1:44.295, a tenth and a half clear of Jimmy Vyman. He snuck up there without us realising. He is very close in behind for G-League. Luke Lucchese and Mike Murphy there, the Premier driver on his pole, will share the second row of the grid, with Ben Chalcraft and Ryan Otten sharing the third. Sebastian Bonnet and a slightly out of position Francois Brandet on the Evo class pole in the fourth row of the grid, and Jeremy Chioka and Jeremy Litas. Jeremy row there in the top 10. It's Josh Ostick, the next driver in the Premier class, alongside Jay Corley. Bas Shalistra and Luis Nevea in P13 and 14, with Martin Kenyon and Robin Noel Brown sharing the 8th row. It's Jeremy Orlemans and Jonas Larson next, with Dennis Collett and James Bostock rounding off the top 20. And then we scroll through to Matthew Noel and Rob Smith, Andrew Fellows and Pierre Bourque, with Henry Coolan and John Ludbrook in row 13. And it's Hussein Sarakadesla, Robin Aston, Steve Rubino and Rob Pick with the top 30, with Steve Ewing, Danny Weir, Matt Stace, Rob Mackay, James Peace, and then, as we said, Matt Hoyland there. And Ashley Brooks did make it into the session, as did Bradley Flanagan. So a mix of pace down there at the back between Elite, Evo and Premier. And we've done that earlier than usual. So we've got a little bit of a buffer before these guys get away. And I'm going to try and find the best angle. I think this will be the one before we get underway. The clock has started, and it's going to be over to Mr. William Humphrey to get us underway. Some engines are beginning to be revved, and here we go. We have the lights then, so we'll need 5 of them, and then we'll be underway on the fairly short run down towards turn 1. It's William Humphrey who will lead Jimmy Vyman away, and it looks like Vyman's actually got quite a good start, as has Luke Lucchese in behind. Vyman does just edge ahead, and he's got the inside line as they already head through turn 1. Luke Lucchese couldn't make anything of it, and William Humphrey snuck around the outside there to retake that place. Lucchese under a little bit of pressure in behind. I think he had a little bit of a wobble. And that's Ben Chalcraft, who's now got himself up past one of the G-League cars. No, that's Ryan Otten, sorry. And I think Francois Brandet has dropped down ever so slightly. Mike Murphy off the line has lost 2 places. Francois has also lost 2 places, but it's Humphrey leads Vyman, leads Lucchese, and then a little bit of a cluster in behind from P5 all the way down to P10.
Yeah, now they're all going to make it through this hairpin. Very, very tricky braking zone. You can see drivers coming in a little bit hot. Drivers cutting the corner a little bit, but they're all going to make their way through just about. You can see everybody running their way through this. Matt Hoyland towards the back of the order trying to gain spaces. Bradley Flanagan, another one of those drivers looking to gain up. I think there were a couple little incidents at the back. Hoyland has gained, I think, 10 positions off the start, and that's exactly what he needs. He needs to get inside the top 10 to get a reverse grid pole. That might be a little bit far off for him at the moment, but he's got 30 minutes to do so, and a move around the outside like this could really help him out.
Yeah, that was a great move. Great start by Hoyland. We'll go back if we can and catch how he made that happen. There's a car off there. Who's that? It's Andrew Fellows who's gone round, and he's got no rear end left on that car. He's going to have to sit and wait and find a safe rejoin, which he does, but that Mercedes has seen better days. That'll be him, probably with a meatball there, heading into the pit lane.
Yeah, there's no way he's going to be able to keep the car going like that. Look at the lead, though, for William Humphrey. It's an absolutely gargantuan at the end of the opening lap. He was under pressure into turn 1. He wasn't leading into the opening corner, but he had the confidence around the outside, kept his foot in, and was able to keep himself in the lead, and he can now try and pull away from the rest. It's going to be critical for him to do so as the rest try and come in behind, spin in the background. Big pile-up. There's a couple of cars facing the wrong way. Cars just trying to avoid Rob Mackay getting caught up in this, along with Henry Coolan, and the rejoin is not ideal, I think it's fair to say.
I would agree with that, mate, and we'll go back and catch what happened to that once we've settled down a little bit. Hoyland was making a lunge. He's made up more places, 11 places now, and he's already on the back of Ashley Brooks. He'll be keen to get past the Evo driver, the elite driver, who's clearly, he's got the pace, he just clearly hasn't been able to set a qualifying lap time, so that's what happens. He's up 11 places, what will soon be 12 in just the opening couple of laps here. but that wasn't ideal. We'll go and find out exactly what happened. It was a few guys ahead. We've got Robert Noel Brown, Luis Nevaeh, Josh Ostick and Andrew Fellows in the pit lane. We saw Henry Coolan, who spun round and then effectively rejoined the circuit facing the wrong way as cars came through turn 15. Less than ideal, but it's all said and done now. We've got Martin Kenyon going side by side. I think he's just got himself past James Bostock, who looks to potentially try and take the inside line, but thinks better of it, and he does in the end, and actually just drives straight through the back of him. That's a pile up there for Rob Pickle, who got stuck, and a rejoin for Kenyon still having to wait. So not ideal there for James. It looked like he was going to make that move, try to sneak up the inside, and then before you know it, he was in the rear, and that's Martin Kenyon round.
It's been a bit of a messy start, hasn't it? Overall, James Bostock clearly getting it wrong into the braking zone and hitting into the back of Martin Kenyon there, who's going to be less than pleased. But as we get to see the tower for the first time in this race, we can see drivers that have gained a lot. Bradley Flanagan up to 9th in Premier Class. Remember, he started last overall. Matt Hoyland's gaining, although he's a long way back from the rest of his battlers in that class. You can see the position changes now. Pierre Borsk, Rob Pickle, Bradley Flanagan as well. They are up massively in the early stages in their own classes, and that's just within their own classes. That doesn't even consider the rest of the classes, with the instance that we've already seen from some elite and Evo drivers still gaining positions for the Premier, guys.
Totally right. Here we've got Robin Aston. I think that's Rob Smith or potentially Steve Rubino as Aston heads around the outside of Steve Rubino. Yes, it is. That's a Premier driver on an Evo driver. Danny Weir thinking about sneaking in. Let's ride on board with Danny for a little while and see how he's getting on. He's up 10 places from the start, and I think is that 4 places in class. Yes, it was. So we alluded to Danny earlier on, saying that even though he qualified toward the back of the grid, he's now been himself up into P5 and was currently on for his joint best finish of the season. He breaks down now in toward the hairpin at turn 5. That's Adelaide. And now back on the power. Got McLaren GT engine steaming down toward the Nürburgring corner through the kink of 6. And let's see how he deals with turn 7 and 8. A little sausage curb there waiting for you if you try and take too much of the corner. But he keeps it within track limits now. This is where we saw Bostock into the back of Kenyon, a little bit deep there by Danny. But he keeps it okay. Has he got someone side by side? No, he's got his teammate Matt Hoyland in behind him. I'm not quite sure if Hoyland is part of the Cyan team, but definitely all in that DXT setup. So it might be a bit of strategy at play soon to try and let Hoyland through if he's got the pace.
And we'll see if that happens soon, and whether Hoyland can just get through on pure pace at the moment. More than enough overtaking opportunities at this circuit that we've clearly seen so far. But we'll have to just see if Matt Hoyland can take any of them. 13 seconds behind the next place driver in class, and got a lot of work to do, especially if he wants to get himself inside the top 10 overall, with the likes of Mike Murphy, Bash Ilstra occupying some spots there as well. Oh, that was not the line though for Matt Hoyland. He had a bad line through there in qualifying. He's had it again in the early stages of the race, and that's James Bostock. He's been in the wars, and he's dropping down the order once again out of the final chicane.
Yeah, he cut the final chicane, and he's obviously got damage on the front. You can see there are a few scrapes and bumps from the collision with Kenyon on the previous lap. And now he's under pressure. That's Matt Hoyland. So Hoyland's been separated off the back of Danny Weir, but he's going to get himself around the outside, I think. James taken to the inside as they head down toward turn 5. I'm not sure if he's going to put up too much of a defence. Let's see. Matt might be able to just sneak around the outside. He's not quite alongside. Oh, and there's a bunch up here. Danny Weir stopped. Who's that round? That's James Peace, is that round? I'm not sure. Danny Weir is also off the circuit. Not quite sure what's happened there. We'll have to go through a couple of replays when we get the chance. Anyway, back at the front, William Humphrey with a commanding lead over 3 seconds off Jimmy Vyman, who's half a second clear of Luke Lucchese. Let's see how close Luke is. He's really thinking about it. Vyman there was in a bit of a defensive position as he headed through that right-hander. So he knows that Lucchese's got the pace. Previous lap times, wow, get this, Dara. Previous lap times by Vyman and Luke Lucchese identical. 1:45.05. I don't quite have the 3-digit decimal place, but I've got the 2. And it was an identical lap time between those guys. Oh my god, and they've both gone flying over those curbs. But definite pressure here on Vyman by Lucchese. In fact, he might make the move into turn 1.
Yeah, looking for it. I don't think he's going to be close enough to really be able to send it very, very fast through here. Very little braking that happens in the opening turn. But clearly, Luke is putting on the pressure onto Jimmy as they make their way through turn number 3. But clearly, these guys are taking a lot of liberty with those curbs through the final chicane. They must have practiced this coming into the race, but it's definitely one for the to get a photo of, maybe use a profile picture or something, because you are getting a lot of air through that final chicane, it's fair to say. Here comes Luke though, inside outside, going for the outside on Jimmy Vyman, and Jimmy defending the inside. Can Luke hook it around the outside, or can he go for the up and under? Looked for the up and under, but Jimmy managing to kind of fend him off through there, and he's going to be able to hold P2 for a little while longer. All this fighting though, it's just allowing William Humphrey to walk a little bit further away, isn't it?
It is, mate. He's now extended that gap by just over another half a second, roughly. He was 3.1, or was it 3.4 when we crossed the line? But he's got a few tenths more, and for as long as these guys battle away, that lead's just going to increase and increase. 22 minutes just gone now. Sorry, 22 to go. So we're not even a third of the way through, and it feels like it's been an absolutely frantic start. I'm going to take a moment. Let's just go back and take a look at how Matt Hoyland got off the line. Let's ride on board with him and see. So there's a bit of a gap ahead. He's obviously got the launch on a few of the cars in front, but there must have been a collision to allow him to pick up 10 positions. We can see that steam of cars. There's one, there's two. And then on the brakes, you can see the cloud of... oh, yeah, we've missed this right at the start. There's a stricken ORA machine facing the wrong way. Hoyland must have picked up maybe 4 or 5. That's Andrew Fellows, who just passed there on the left-hand side in the Mercedes. So that's a good 7 or 8 of those positions picked up. And is there going to be a lunge here going into turn 5 on his teammate? I'm not sure who that would be. Perhaps Rob Mackay at the start, who probably wouldn't do much to struggle. Then there was that check up. You can see Danny Weir, he sneaks up the inside of him again there. And that's pretty much going to be it. We then caught on with Hoyland about this point in the lap, and we saw him try to go around the outside of the Porsche ahead. So great stop by Hoyland, and made the most of that contact.
Yeah, and if you start towards the back, it's all you can really do as well, isn't it? I mean, we did see some of the drivers, and we'll have to see it again, start around the final chicane, which is why there was such a big gap between himself and a few of the cars in front. So we're going to see a few of the guys at the back have to do that again, which isn't going to be particularly helpful off the launch, but we saw it just there, that it enables you to kind of stay out of it long enough to pick up the pieces when there's incidents up in front, and was able to gain that many spots. The same can be said for Bradley Flanagan, who started dead last and gained a heap of positions to get himself to where he is now, inside the top 10 in class. But in this race, of course, we didn't have a reverse grid last week. The reverse grid this week means that we'll have the top 10 overall reversed, and when we're able to see the overall tower with all of the classes filtered in together, you can see it there. Bas Schliestra is on the bubble, and he's ahead of Jeremy Ullemans and Francois Brandet, and that's going to be a really interesting battle. Bas is second in his class, and Mike Murphy is the championship leader. Needs to stick with Mike Murphy to keep him in check for the championship. But for Francois Brandet, if he can get into that reverse grid, he's going to be absolutely flying once again at the top of his standings.
Yeah, a little bit to go, and he's obviously got 2 of the, well, Elite and Premier ahead of him. But as you say, he's within a second here. Let's find Francois, is he? Here he is, just coming through the final chicane now. Let's ride on board. I love that. Look, that might be a bit of a, a slowdown. I'm not sure how forgiving that chicane is, but a lot of these drivers really maximising. You can see the entry that Francois maximised there. Basically, 4 wheels beyond the curb. Oh, and that's a stricken DXT machine. Is he coming out the pit lane? That might be Rob Mackay. Yes, it is Rob Mackay coming out of the pit lane. And then let's see. So Francois, he's got just a second. You can see pole position for the second race just ahead of him. And I'm sure he'll be going full steam ahead to make that happen.
Yeah, let's see if he can make any spots. It's going to be difficult for him, I think, to really force this move, especially when you've got Ullemans and Schilstra up in front. He's also got to be careful of Matthew Noel in behind him, of course. P2 in class is the next car behind him on the road. Pierre Borg just got ahead of John Ludbrook overall as well, so that's going to give another car between Noel and Ludbrook in that little fight. But it goes back to the conversation we were saying, before the race really started, with there being a reduced number of drivers compared to, the 50, 60 odd that we've seen in the last few weeks. Points are going to be so critical, particularly in that Evo class where there's only 10 drivers. Luis Nevaeh doesn't look like he's going to be able to pick up any, being in the pit lane for a little while while now, but for the likes of Andrew Fellows and Steve Ewing, despite the fact they've had awful races, they're still going to be picking up pretty nice points. I mean, P9 is still going to get you 21 points, and that's just for finishing the race, so there's lots still on offer for these guys, and really it's just by virtue of turning up tonight.
Totally right, mate, and I'm just seeing Hoyland, he's dropped down a few places, so I'm going to try and cut back to him. Let's just see what happened to Matt Hoyland a little bit earlier on. I'm not sure if we caught this live. Is this the checkup that we saw? No, it's not. He's gone ahead, and then he's slapped it over the barriers, and he's had a spin over the curb. We've seen a lot of the drivers, as you said, taking liberties over that penultimate curb, and he's just had to sit there painfully wait. There's Danny Weir passing him, so he obviously got past that clunker cars there, but that's unfortunate. Undone some of the hard work that Hoyland did earlier in the race, and we just catch there Luke Lucchese making that move finally stick on Jimmy Vyman. I think is that down at turn 5, so now he's got the run out of the first sector as we head through the kink at 6 down towards 7 now, and I think that might allow Lucchese through 3/10s quicker on that previous lap, and now Lucchese can stretch his legs and try to set after Humphrey. 5 seconds the difference with 16 minutes left to go.
It's going to be really critical, I think, for Luke to keep this P2. Of course, Tristan, his teammate, not here this evening. And then you've got Ryan Ottens and Ben Chalcraft, who are just in front of him in the championship, sitting behind him at the moment on the road. This could be a really important evening for Luke. Of course, even if he gets P2 in this race, he's going to start behind the likes of Jimmy Vyman, Ben Chalcraft and Ryan Ottens for race 2. But to get the points on the board, we've seen how crucial that can be, and that's exactly what he's doing at the moment. William Humphrey looks like he's stretching his legs, particularly with Justin Rome and Tristan de Nombrega not here. It means that his closest competitor coming into this race in the championship is Ryan Ottens, and he's 78 points back. He's gaining at the moment, and I think by the end of this race, it's likely to be nearly 100.
Yeah, 3/10s quicker was Humphrey over Lucchese last lap, so the gap has extended ever so slightly, and as we crossed the line, it was actually there just 1/10 quicker this time for Humphrey. So he's still got the pace. Lucchese is really going to have a miracle here if he's got any chance at taking that race win. Something that I alluded to last week is that Lucchese has raced in this Monday series for many weeks, and he's yet to stand on the top step. So we keep our eyes peeled for when that inevitably happens. But you can see Humphrey just disappearing off into the distance through the hairpin now, and it might not be his night tonight, but he's certainly in prime position. Humphrey's not the kind of guy who I don't think will make a mistake, but I think it might be a little bit too much for Lucchese to overcome that 5-second gap with only now 15 minutes to go. Here's Francois Brandet, still in that pack, still in the hunt for that reverse grid. And did the car in front make a move there? No, he didn't. I thought he looked like he just moved to the inside, but Francois will be absolutely all over this as we just crossed the halfway point of this race. That's been 8 and a bit laps to go, so we've got best part of 9 laps left. Plenty of opportunities for things to change around. Mike Murphy still leading from pole in the Premier class, Francois still leading from pole in the Evo class, and William Humphrey still leading from pole in the Elite class.
I think that was Jeremy Allemans getting away here. This is Francois Brandet trying to get through on Bas Schielstra, who's P2 in the Premier class, just to put a perspective on how good Francois is doing this evening. He's trying to make a move for P2 in Premier, let alone in his own class, which he leads by a few seconds. But Jeremy Allemans' key move to try and get him up the road, he really needs to kickstart his championship, and a reverse grid pole would do just that. Best result so far this season of 7th, and that came in the opening race last time out of the Hungarian. That 15-minute sprint that we saw has 2 8th places, one at Suzuka and one at Road Atlanta, and a 9th place at Suzuka as well. But that's all she wrote really so far this season for him. But if Jeremy can get onto reverse grid pole here, this 10th place could find itself manifesting into maybe a podium in race 2, which could be critical for him as he fights in the championship with the likes of Jeremy Chioka and Jake Hawley at the moment.
Here is the battle at the front toward the top 5, currently led by Ottens, Chioka, and then Mike Murphy, as we said. So he doesn't want to do too much, although he's right on the back of these elite drivers. Pace-wise, the last lap, he was actually quicker by 2/10 over the cars in front, but he doesn't want to compromise himself too much by losing time battling away. We've got Bradley and Hoyland back there joicing for position again and again. Martin Kenyon now getting involved. Let's see, there's Hoyland. And Bradley's actually just dropped back a little bit. He might have just had a little wobble. We've got James Bostock going side by side with Steve Rubino. And Steve Rubino is just ahead as they head into the hairpin down at turn 5. Let's see as these guys go side by side. Room left by both drivers. And who's that? Jonas Larsson, who might think about a move here. He's got these two guys jostling position. The 166 machine and the 34 machine all out of class. But it's actually Larsson and Bostock who are the two Premier drivers battling for position in class.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting little tussle, I think. James Bostock, he's got to be careful, nearly having to him what happened, well, nearly getting rear-ended in the same way that James rear-ended another car earlier on in the race. So not ideal for the 168, but, you know, the boss man in the McLaren looking like he is trying to keep in touch with Steve Rubino at the moment. Of course, for these guys further down the order, wherever they finish is going to be where they start, so they can resume their battles. Really want to have that little bit of advantage off the start, wouldn't you? If you can help it, especially if you can find yourself on the inside or the outside, which we've seen could be beneficial through the opening half of a lap with such long corners. And really, if you pick the right line, you can gain a load of positions in the same way that we saw from some of the drivers that started further back. Jonas Larsson not taking the best of lines through the final chicane, and that's definitely going to be an off track for him.
Yeah, you can really see how much you can extend those track limits. It's reminiscent of what we saw last night during the Grand Prix between Verstappen and Norris, both of them off of the curb and almost onto the green stuff. And it's clearly not a track limits violation in this case, so those guys really able to maximise their entry, carrying the speed. We've seen many drivers doing that, Francois earlier in the race, and that's something that will be helpful. Bostock didn't take that line, and in a way, that might have compromised him a little bit here, because it looks like Larsson has got a good run. Is he going to think about making the move? It'll be a bit of a lunge if he thinks about it. He's going to put his car there. Oh, it's late. It's late. And he's kept it together. He probably should have been a little bit more committed there, I feel like. It was always going to be on. But after he entered that braking zone, didn't quite put him alongside until last second in the corner. Bostock actually lets him through. Perhaps he thinks it's better just to save time rather than battling ahead.
Yeah, we'll have to see if that strategy can help him towards the end of this race. Still 11 minutes to go, really. I mean, we had a lot of action at the start, but with all of the incidents that we've seen, it has gapped itself out a little bit as we've run our way through. But it's still going to be important to get yourself a couple of positions for the start of race number 2, and we will, of course, bunch back up again. You can see in the top left as the times come in, Sebastian Bonnet setting his fastest lap of the race. Maybe he's feeling a little bit of resurgency towards the back of Chioka and Ottens. We'll keep an eye on that. But generally, I think drivers are going to be a little bit more conservative. In race 1, of course, when you've got the race setting the grid for race 2, you're always going to find drivers who are a little bit more cautious, as that is not the line for the driver ahead of Jonas Larsson. That's
Steve
not Robin
Rubino.
Aston. There you go, thank you, Steve Rubino, who is in that Evo class. But I was going to say that, of course, you're always going to find yourself being a little bit more conservative when you have to think about your starting position for race 2. In about 30 minutes' time, when we're into race 2, I think we're going to see some much harsher racing, because at that point, drivers aren't thinking ahead anymore.
No, you're absolutely right there. They really aren't. And I'm looking up and down the timing tower here. Look at that. 5.4, 15.7, and then 3 seconds away from P1 and P2 in all of the respective classes. So not many battles for the lead. Not too many close battles, actually, as it stands on track. Still plenty of time for things to change. At the moment, we've got Jeremy Chioka, who's close in behind Ryan Ottens, which we caught earlier, and Francois still close in behind Basilistra and Jeremy Orlemans, but that hasn't switched at the moment. So as things stand, it's going to be Jeremy Orlemans. Ooh, who's that off in the distance? As we pass there, that's who was that? Is that Ashley? No, it's not. Oh, it's a lap car. I believe that's maybe Andrew Fellows. Yeah, it is. Unfortunately there, Andrew Fellows off track and in the barrier once again, so a night to forget for him. But, as we said earlier, he's nearly 50 seconds down, 47 seconds away from Steve Ewing, but still having only a few Evo drivers in attendance tonight crossing the line will still bring home a good amount of points for Andrew in this case tonight. And I was going to say, let's catch up with how we're getting on here. It's Jeremy Orlemans. Actually, the gap there is now pretty large, 3.5 seconds away from these guys, so I think the top 10 is all but done, apart from, obviously, any mistakes that we might happen. But at the front, it's this pack. We've got Ryan Ottens leading Chioka, Mike Murphy, Sebastian Bonnet, and Jay Corley in the Aston Martin just leaving the picture now. This is the close action that we have on track.
It is. And it's a nice little battle, isn't it, towards the front of the field. Ryan Ottens feeling like he's probably going to need to defend from Jeremy Chioka at the moment, but Trioka not really applying too much pressure as they work their way in towards this tightening left hand. It just gets ever tighter, doesn't it? It feels like if it was some kind of rally instruction, it'd be, you know, like 3-2 tightening. You know, it really does pinch up on that apex before opening up towards 11 and then towards 12 and 13 at that Imola chicane, which we're coming up to now. You're going to struggle to make moves between turn 9, where it is that tightening left-hander, and turn 14, which is what they've just come through there. Difficult, though, once you've got that long run through and maybe a little bit of dirty air not helping. Turn 15, we've seen a couple of attempted overtakes, but it does narrow the circuit up towards that corner, and, you know, the slight kink left doesn't particularly help, nor does the fact that the gravel is right there on the outside of the corner. So difficult to make moves towards the end of the lap, but could we see a move possibly from Trioka in the first half of the lap?
He's going to have to think about setting something up. Again, as you say, you won't want to just sit there, perhaps with the reverse grid in mind, but again, you want to bring home the points when you can. We just see Martin Kenyon getting past Hussein Saraka Desla as they go side by side. This is now heading down through turns 12 and 13 through the kink of Imola. And now, let's see, is Huss going to think about a move here? Possibly not. Not quite close enough, but he does get a good entry. Let's see how the exit is. No, not quite good enough to overcome Kenyon in that position. This is a battle for position in class, currently for P10 in the Premier Division. And looking up and down the timing sheets, again, as you see these lap times come in, 6 minutes to go, but not too much action going on. We're looking out for a mistake. Dennis Collar closing in behind Bas Chalistra, and he must have just got past Francois Brandet, actually, because he wasn't there a moment ago. Let's see if I see that. Yes, he did. Let's see how he got that move done. Was it a mistake by Francois, or was it contact, perhaps? Let's see how this one was done. Just moves to the inside, does Francois to defend, lets him through. So Francois not thinking anymore about that reverse grid, and he lets the Premier driver of Collar through unchallenged.
Yeah, and an interesting little move there, but for Dennis Collar now, I think the key is going to have to be make the overtake on Bas Chalistra. Bas has not been the fastest driver of the last 15 minutes. Dropped back, it's fair to say, from the likes of Jeremy Ullemans at the moment, and from Jeremy Ullemans, he's kept ahead of Francois Brandet, and Dennis Collar has come up through the order, but Dennis Collar looking to try and get himself into 11th, which would be oh so close to the top 10, and would put himself right behind, at the moment, William Humphrey on the grid. It's also important for the championship battle in terms of the points. Inside line, bit of a mistake there from Bas. Dennis Collar's going to get a better run through the final chicane, but could Francois Brandet get an even better run? I don't think so. For Collar there, that was a great opportunity, and Bas clearly not enjoying his time towards the end of this race, and he is struggling a load to keep that car under control right now.
We can see the focus now on the face of Francois as he looks at these two cars battling ahead. This is exactly where you want to be, with just enough of a gap not to get involved. Snap of oversteer there from Francois, just had to catch it on the exit of the corner, but you can see these two guys now, and it looks as though, no, I thought that pink Mercedes might have just stuck his nose up the inside there at turn 4, thinks better of it, and looks to the outside line. Let's stay on board with Francois as they head into the hairpin at turn 5. Is he going to think about the exit? A little bit of a wobble by the BMW, and it's a very tight exit there by Francois, who maybe doesn't fancy getting involved with this, just quite happy sitting where he is at the moment.
Yeah, I think for Francois, I think sitting where he is probably going to be good enough. If he can pick up pieces from these two, then that's going to be a bonus, but he's got the gap to Mathieu Noel at the moment to keep himself in P14 overall, P13 overall I should say, and the lead in the class. But here comes Dennis Curler. He's looking for the move around the outside. The Imola chicane would be bold, it'd be brave. It's not going to work, but that's a big bit of airtime there from Bas Chalistra, who is all out of shape. He's all out of line. Bit of a love tap as well from the bright pink BWT machine of Dennis Curler. But in the end, no one's going to be able to make moves. Maybe Brandet, actually. Brandet, we might see him emerge on the inside. There he is. He's making the move, and he is picking up the pieces. We'll have the inside at turn 14 on 15. This is going to be tricky to get it on the stoppers, though.
Yeah, and that was crazy for a moment there. The BMW, I must say, an incredible save by Bas to keep that in a straight line. He had a couple of chances, a couple of stabs at it, managed to keep it intact, and then respect also to Dennis Collar, not for driving through the back of him. We sometimes see those guys, after they've made a mistake, people get a little bit eager and think, oh, I can get him now. but Dennis did just back out and allow Bass to keep that position. In the end, actually, losing out to Francois. So his kindness has been a bit of a stopper for him. He's lost out on that position and will probably now struggle to challenge for P2 in class. As we see here, it's Jay Corley and Sebastian Bonnet going side by side, and Jay just dips back in behind them as they head now down toward the hairpin at turn 9, 180 degrees. And now that gap has closed. Let's ride back on with this battle, because it looked as though these guys were in their own little pocket. And then we cut back, and all these guys in behind, Collar, Matthew Noel, Pierre Borgs and Rob Pickle, now all of a sudden right up in this pack. It's a big mixture here. From Bass downwards, it's Premier Evo, Premier Evo, Premier Evo. So lots and lots of changes there in that pack of 6 or 7 cars. And it was very interesting, actually, particularly between Pierre and Rob. Those guys are the closest at the moment. These two here, the green livery. Sorry, no, it's actually Pierre and Rob ahead in the green and then the blue livery. And he's got a little bit of a run here, I think, Rob.
They have still got 2.5 laps to go here, because William Humphries crossed the line with just over 2 minutes left on the clock, which means he will reach the line once again before the timer hits 0. And with these guys already being about half a lap down, they've still got more than 2 laps left to run, so more than enough time to make some of these moves. But you were right in saying how hatch-marked this gaggle of cars is, and really a lot of this battling is going to be more for positioning yourself for race 2 rather than gaining any points, because Dennis Curler's got to get through 2 cars to gain any points. Bruce Rakes needs to get through 2. Yeah, because this is the only battle, isn't it, for position in class?
It is, and we've picked it at the right moment. You could just see there, Rob didn't take too much of the entry chicane, as opposed to Pierre ahead, and that did kind of benefit him a little bit in the run down toward turn 1, but he couldn't quite get his nose in front, but he might have a chance here. Here we go. This is a great opportunity as he puts his car alongside. Let's cut to the TV cam so we can see. He's just still ahead of him ever so slightly, Pierre, but crucially, Rob is on that inside line. We've got the cars ahead, the Aston Martin having to think about the move on the pink Mercedes, and that is Rob Pickle up into P4 in the Premier class. And it's not going to be an opportunity on the switchback for Pierre. So a swap of positions there. We kind of saw that coming right from the start of the lap. When Rob got that great exit out of the final chicane, he set that up all the way down to turn 5, and he made the move stick.
And Pickle, of course, not having a top 4 since he got a podium in the opening race of the season. So this is a good-looking result for him at the moment, only behind Murphy, Schulstra, and Kohler on the circuit. And, he's going to be gaining points on the likes of Stephen Donnelly, Martin Kenyon. So this is looking good for Rob Pickle. For Pierre Borsk, I think maybe he's going to be looking to get that move back. Not had the best of starts to the season, of course, wasn't here for Suzuka, and only managed to pick up 1 top 10 in the 5 races that he's been able to take part in. But this is a good result for him nonetheless, but definitely will still be looking for that top 4.
So we keep our eyes out now for the white flag, which I think we will have. Let's confirm as we hear it is. There he is, the man in the gantry waving the white flag. So let's ride on with William Humphrey. We haven't really focused too much on him. Let's give him a little bit of attention as he heads round on what will be his final lap. He's just making his way through turn 6 and 7 now, is Mr. Humphreys. And he will come home to win once again in what will be his 4th race victory of the season. 5.3 second gap to Luke Lucchesi, and he sets the fastest lap of the session. Only just though, he's only 2/100ths of a second quicker than Jimmy Vyman, who currently sits in P3, and just 1/10 of a second quicker than Luke Lucchesi. So those top 3 will be in a feisty old battle, starting in what will be P10, P9 and P8 for the current top 3 as we head into the second race. Humphrey now exiting down towards the final few corners. He's only got 1 or 2 more braking zones to go through the kink into the 100-metre board down at turn 15, and we can ride on with him as he comes across the line. It's going to be William Humphrey once again to take the checkered flag in the elite division here around Magny Cours, and that's a great result for him. Absolutely. Luke Lucchesi next. We can see him coming across the final corner now. He'll take home P2 ahead of Jimmy Vyman in P3, Ben Chalcraft in P4, and where's Mike Murphy? Here he is, yet another win for Mr. Mike Murphy. That is his 4th win in the last 3 rounds. He crosses the line ahead of Bas Chalistra with a big gap once again, 20 seconds. Something tells me that it was a similar gap this time last week. I remember being a little bit gobsmacked by the gaps between he and Bass, but nonetheless, he will be impressed by that. And there's Francois Brandet as he comes across the line. Let's get him on the cam and see him celebrating as he crosses the line to win once again in the Evo class, closely followed by Collar, Pierre and Rob Pickle, the top 15.
Yeah, good results all the way through, but our championship leaders they're doing pretty well, aren't they? William Humphrey, Mike Murphy and Francois Brandet extending those leads, but I think throughout the rest of this season, it's going to be really interesting for a lot of the battles behind the champion, because we're seeing some toing and froing for P2 in the championship, for P3 in the championship. Ash Ilstra really coming to form, but getting a very good result for P2 will have a good starting position for race number 2 as well. Matthew Noel, good result for him in the Evo class. So I think some good results, some drivers are going to come away from this very, very happy indeed.
Completely right. Here we are then. Henry Coulin, he had a little bit of an off a few laps ago. I saw lap 14, he had an incident, so he's just recovering down there. P14 in class at the moment. Not the worst thing. He's the last of the finishers, though, to cross the line. Unfortunately, Danny Weir, Steve Ewing, Andrew Fellows, Rob Mackay, Josh Ostick and Lewis Nevea, I believe, unable to finish. Those guys entered the pit lane not so long ago. And that will be it then. I think everybody else is in, and that is the end of the session. So we have 5 minutes to recover and run through those race results. Let me get those up for us now, and we can certainly have a run through the order. So then, to go through the elite class, we congratulate William Humphrey on yet another win, the 298 British driver for Dennett Racing. He finished the best part of 5 seconds ahead of Luke Lucchese for RDSA Esports on the second step of the podium, with Jimmy Vyman for G League, the 229 French machine, rounding off the podium. Ben Chalcraft and Ryan Otten's the top 5, with Sebastian Bonnet, Jay Corley and Jeremy Orlemans the top 8. Jeremy Litas and James Peace the top 10, with Jeremy Chioka and Matt Hoyland, who had a great start but made one slight mistake, and now he finds himself right at the back of the class once again.
Over in the Premier class, what a win it was for Mike Murphy. We keep saying how big some of these margins are, but you can just see how huge it is. 20 seconds for him to win yet another race in this Premier class. Bas Schilstra continues his good run of form to get second, and Dennis Curler will be very pleased to get himself onto the podium in a busy race for him. P4 for Pierre Bourges in his best result of the season, with Rob Pickle picking up some good points in P5. The two Robs together, though, with Smith just behind him. They're 5th and 6th in the championship, and they're 5th and 6th in the race, with Smith coming home in 6th. Robin Aston, James Bostock, Jonas Larson and Martin Kenyon, those drivers inside the top 10, with Hussein Saraka Dessler just outside, looking inside the top 11. We saw Matt Stace, Bradley Flanagan and Henry Coulin finish the race and within the lead lap, but sadly we didn't see Rob McKee or Josh Ostick finish, and I don't think they'll be picking up too many points from this race.
I would tend to agree with you there, mate. A good result overall. And now, the smallest class of the evening, just 10 drivers to go through. Once again, Francois Brandet extends his championship lead at the front, finishing on the top step of the podium for DXT Emerald. 5.5 seconds ahead of Matthew Noel, the Canadian driver. A good result for him, actually. Thinking about that, this is his second podium of the season. He got a P2 in the opening round, the final race at Suzuka, but has been unable to get a top 3 ever since. So good return for Matthew Noel there. John Ludbrook back on the podium. That keeps up his run. He's actually finished on the podium in all of the last 5 races. So let's see if he can keep that up in the upcoming race ahead of us tonight for Camé GP2 McLaren. Steve Rubino and Ashley Brooks inside the top 5, with Robin Noel Brown in the top 6, with Danny Weir in P7. He started in P9, so made a few positions as the race went on. Steve Ewing, Andrew Fellows, the last of the finishers really, just 1 lap down. And unfortunately, Lewis Nevea out pretty much right at the start. 16 laps down. He'll be unlikely to bring home any of those points. So then, a good summary. We can catch up, see if anybody... In fact, is that time to start already? Or are we still in the warm-up phase? Let me take a look. Here we go. Still got 2 minutes to go in the warm-up, so we have a bit of a chance to follow on, I believe. Now, actually, here's William Humphrey. Is he going to do some practice starts for us here? Let's see. Yes, he is. So... going to practice ahead of starting just inside the top 10. Just 1 practice start is enough for him, as he lets, I believe that's Jay Corley heading out onto the track. Yes, it is. So we can ride on with these guys and just summarise that evening for us. So, Dara, as we say, Mike Murphy finishing a good 20 seconds ahead of anybody else. And I noticed there, as you were talking through the times, everybody else in behind him was only about a second off each other. So the top 5 separated by not too much, with the outlier of Mr. Murphy right there at the top.
We did see that gaggle, didn't we, towards the back end of the top 10 run their way through, and it was a very interesting little battle, and I think it's going to be an interesting one to watch resume very shortly as well. But for Mike Murphy, I mean, this is fantastic for him. He's just stretching his legs in this championship. He came into this race with a 55-point lead after the double win at the Hungaroring. It's now 3 in a row with the points here at Magny Cours. I think I'm going to do the totting up in a second, but I think his championship lead is going to be towards 80 now, and we've still got another race to go where he's going to have a very favourable starting position. So really, really impressive for him, but also impressive from Francois Brandet to get his third win in a row after his double win at the Hungaroring. I have been able to plug in the results already, though, for the elite class, and I can say that James Peace got his first top 10 of the season in the race that we have just seen, and also we saw Sebastian Bonnet get his best result of the year, finishing in P6.
Yeah, so just checking, look at that as it stands then. So Justin Rem still holding on to P2, even though he's not with us this evening. Ryan Ottens stands in 3rd place with Ben Charcraft and Luke Lucchese, the top 5. Tristan Denobrega in a bit of a risk to losing out a position to Jimmy Vyman, especially if he can get another strong result toward the top of the elite standings. But nonetheless, William Humphrey doing very well, as we said, his 4th win already of the championship season, and in perfect time. That takes us to the end of the warm-up, and as soon as we get the grid, I'll hand that over to you to give us a little rundown. It should be on its way. Here we go.
There it is. And we've got Bash Ilstra on pole position then in the Premier class. Really, really important for him to be there, although I know it will be him. It's because Jeremy Ullermans we can see front and centre. We've not seen Bass load in yet. Mike Murphy is 3rd, Jay Coulay in 4th, with Bonnet and Ottens on the 3rd row. We've got Chalcraft and Jimmy Vyman on the 4th row. What can Jimmy Vyman do from that starting position with Luke Lucchese and championship leader William Murphy on row number 5. It's our Evo Championship leader, Francois Brandet, in 11th ahead of Dennis Curler, Pierre Bourges and Rob Pickle on the 6th and 7th rows. Matthew Noel, Jeremy Litas, John Ludbrook, James Peace, Rob Smith and Robin Aston are the top 20, and we'll roll through to see Steve Rubino and Jeremy Chioka, Bostock and Hoyland and Larson inside the top 25, with Ashley Brooks, Martin Kenyon and Hussein Sarakadesla on rows 13 and 14. Matt Stace and Robin Noel Brown were inside the top 15 rows in the top 30, with the other 8 drivers being made up with Bradley Flanagan, Henry Coolan, Danny Weir, Steve Ewing, Andrew Fellows, Rob Mackay, Josh Ostick, and our final man on the grid. We will see get racing very shortly, because we're ready. 5 red lights here at Magny Cours, and we're racing for race 2. 30 minutes here to see who can come out on top. Really important in the Premier classes. It's a fantastic start from Jeremy Ullermans, launching into the lead at turn number 1. We've seen the inside line work once and now twice off the line, and that's a very good start for him as we see them run through turn number 3. Bash Ilstra and Mike Murphy fighting away. Those 2 in the Premier class, only 2 in the Premier class inside the top 10. Could be critical as Bass holds on. They'll make their way out of turn 3 towards turn 4. Looks cleaner at the front, looks more bunched as well, and we could see a couple of late dives in towards the hairpin.
Yeah, everyone got away very well. Nothing to report toward the back of the field. We can see them all jostling for position. There's that pink Mercedes just darting to the inside line as they all bunch up, heading down it towards turn 5. There's going to be a little bit of a concertina, which there is contact for Bostock there. Someone's round. That's Collar, Rubino and Noel who've been involved in an incident. There's 2 cars, one completely sideways across the circuit there. Ostick, oh God, wasn't as clean as what we'd hoped. They all made it through the first 4 corners, but as they all bunched up right at the back of the field into what is a pretty tricky, heavy braking zone, as we said, probably the heaviest on the circuit. A few of those guys getting caught out, and that's 6 or 7 drivers who've been stranded there at the back of the pack, who are now effectively 9 seconds off the back of the field.
A couple of drabs going wide there as well. I think that was James Bostock maybe going off of the road, or at least one of his Carme teammates down there. Could be Danny Weir, but good start at the front for Jeremy Ullermans. He needs to try and scarper away as much as he can. Bash Ilstra and Mike Murphy providing a little bit of cover for the time being, but that's not going to last forever, and he is going to have to try and make some of that gap himself. Jay Coulay with a good start up to 4th, but shout out to William Humphrey. Once again, you just turned to him as I was going to mention him. Up from 10th to 7th on the opening lap and overtaking some important drivers in the process, and that could be critical. It's Bonnet out of the final corner of spun.
Yeah, just caught him there, and now he's in a very precarious position. He's really going to have to painfully let the entire field pass. He maybe thought about it there, but he's doing the right thing to let these guys go. We're not going to watch them on to embarrass them any more than what we've already done. We'll ride back on board with Ryan Ottens as William Humphrey, as I've been, you know, reminded in chat, which I should know. I race with Will all the time. I don't know why I was calling him Humphreys, but we're back with William Humphrey as he challenges Ryan Ottens ahead back down towards turn 5. Hopefully the drivers make it through this corner slightly better than they did last time, and that's Ben Shalcraft, who's maybe thinking about a move on Lucchese, but he holds it steady. And I was going to, when we can, I'm going to go back to see exactly what happened down at turn 5 on the opening lap. I saw Henry Coulin and a couple of other guys coming up on the timing sheets. Who's that spinning around? That's Mike Murphy, the Premiership leader, who is now stranded on the exit of turn 5. He's going to have to pick his time across the circuit, and he does it in a good way. He's back running, so we'll catch on what happened to him. It might have been involved with Martin Kenyon. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I see that on my timing tower there. So, disaster there for Mr. Mike Murphy, who's now down in P13 in class.
Yeah, not good starts from a couple of these drivers, and they're going to have to struggle their way through, I think, the early stages of this second 30-minute race. But we'll run our way through out of turn number 14 with a few of these guys really, really closely bunched up. And this is Jeremy Ullmans, who is leading the way. He's not been able to get away in the manner I expected him to. Bash Ilstra is keeping him more than honest at the moment as they run their way through turn number 15. And if I was Jeremy Ullmans, I'd be starting to get a little bit worried about some of the drivers in behind, but we'll see as they run their way out of the final corner who's got the upper hand. It is Ullmans as we see a move in behind. Jay Cooley and William Humphrey fighting side by side. This is Jimmy Vyman actually going side by side with William Humphrey as they run their way through turn 2 and 3. Luke Lucchese towards the back of this as well. This is getting very tight. Humphrey's gone too far wide, lost one position, and with Luke up the inside, I think he might have lost 2.
Yeah, I think it looked like Humphrey may have had a slowdown there, because I think he let Ottens or at least Jay Coley through. And he looked like he was particularly far from the normal racing line there to really be challenging or trying to defend. So potentially a slowdown for Humphrey there, but it's not gone so bad. He's been able to keep Lucchese behind and put himself in between him and Jimmy Vyman, who we're right on board with now, but not exactly the start. Oh, he did have a good start. He's still up 4 positions, but not exactly the start that he wanted to maintain, particularly getting that slowdown. I would imagine he's maybe just taken a little bit too much out of that chicane at turn 17. And that's right on with Jeremy Litas, who's at the back of this pack in that lovely blacked out Mercedes there. He's right on behind Ben Shalcraft, who's still fighting ahead at the top 10. And Bash Listra has just taken the lead of the race ahead of Jeremy Orlemans, who's not side by side anymore. In fact, he could lose 2 places in one. Ryan Ottens goes around the outside of the chicane. A great move if he can make that stick, but he can't. And and maybe a rear contact there, a little bit of a bunch up. That's Jay Corley, who had to take a little bit of an evasive action to get away from the back of Ottens. And these guys all exit that corner very, very close together. This pack, Corley down Vyman and Humphrey and Lucchese, all very close as they head down toward turn 15. And when we get a moment, I'm going to go and see how Bass got that move done. In fact, we can do it right now before we forget. Was it a mistake? A little bit wide there, a little bit deep. Dipped the rear right into the gravel. And I think that would have just allowed Bass, it did just allow him to run up the hill. And he got that move done dead easily, actually.
And Bass now in an absolutely stunning position with Mike Murphy all the way down the field in 13th. Bass is going to be absolutely loving life right now. After the opening race, Mike Murphy, of course, winning 3 in a row. He has a 61-point advantage. If Mike Murphy was to finish in P13 and Bass was to win this race in class, then immediately gets reduced back down to 22. So this is critical for Bash Ilstra to try and win this race. If he can do so, I think he's going to be in a very good position in the championship. But we'll have to keep an eye out and see how he can do. Pierre Borsk, of course, currently sitting in P2. I mentioned how he had his best race result of the season just a few minutes ago, picking up a top 5. And we'll have to see if he can carry that momentum through at the moment. But we'll have to wait and see how they can get on.
I must say, this definitely isn't a hardware issue. This could be a server-side issue, because all of my systems are still running perfectly fine. I got the timing tower saying out. I don't know if you caught that. Everybody was out. And there was an issue a prior lap where we weren't getting the relative times coming through. So I wonder if there's been a problem with the server. So let's give it a minute and see what it does. Stream is still running. And yeah, the game is still alive. The timing tower is still alive. And I'm trying to see if anyone says anything in the comments about whether it's a server issue or whether it's something on my end. If it is, I can just back out of the lobby and get us back in, which I might do in the meantime, actually. But I'm hoping that someone can reliably inform me in the chat if any of the drivers have been disconnected. Let me just cut away for a moment, and we'll be back in a second to see if I can just restart the game and get back into the lobby. So... Okie dokie. So, an issue on my connection by the looks of things, but we're back, nonetheless. And we can continue with Bashlistra at the front of the grid. Just under 20 minutes to go, so we didn't miss too much. However, he's under masses of pressure now from Ryan Ottens as they head the run down the hill toward the final few corners. That's right on board with Mr. Ottens, the BMW against the McLaren here. And let's see how long the Premier driver can hang on to this race lead for.
You have a nice little gap though, don't they? Back to Ben Chalcraft, Ullemans, Lucchesi and Litas. Those guys clearly been fighting hard, but Ben Chalcraft there with the fastest lap time, it seems, 44.8. That's kind of what we were seeing in qualifying, so a very quick time from the driver in the 2:08, and he's going to be claiming a little bit of ground on the likes of Ottens and Schilstra at the front of this field. If you are Ryan Ottens, you need to get through on Bas quickly, if nothing else but for a little bit of protection. This is a very weird scenario where we've got the Premier driver leading the race, and the elite drivers are, at the moment, looking like they're going to be fighting it out behind. So for Ryan Ottens, getting through on Bas is going to be critical to give him a little bit of a buffer zone, but Bas looks really, really quick in his own right at the moment.
It looks as though we've just had a big incident toward the back. Now, I was saying maybe I shouldn't go back to the replay, maybe I won't, but it looks as though Bradley Flanagan, James Bostock, Rob Mackay and Matt Hoyland have all jumped back to the pit lane at the same time. And so potentially a big incident for those guys, which was around P23 or 25 roughly, based on what I can remember. And those guys out of the race. I was just about to cut to Rob Mackay actually, because he's part of the driver cams. As we cut there, it's Robin Aston, who's just gone straight into the back, I think, of potentially James Peace, and he's now missing a rear end on the back of that Mercedes. I'm not entirely sure what happened there, actually. I was looking at the timing sheets and then I just heard the impact.
Yeah, it doesn't seem good, does it, for any of those guys? And for Robin Aston as well, that is just going to really, really affect him. We'll see if he has to tow it back. I think he will.
He will, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not good for Robin Aston at all. But it's good for the likes of Stace, who've been able to gain a couple of spots. Sarah Cadessla's back inside the top 5 after a suboptimal opening race for him, but you can see how messy it is towards the back of the field. Only really the top 27 are still in the quote-unquote lead train, even though they're not nose to tail. Everybody else is a lot further back, so yeah, really, really difficult for a lot of the drivers in behind. The likes of Hoyland, James Peace, Matthew Noel. Really, Noel, a big name, of course, in that Evo class. After his good couple of results, he's up into P5 in the championship after the opening race, but looks like his progress is going to be stunted a little bit now.
Yeah, looking up and down at the sector times, we've got these guys lapping within a tenth of each other, so the Premier pace is definitely enough at the moment to keep ahead of Ottens, but we've got Jimmy Vyman, who's just set a fastest purple sector 1, so he's got a good little bit of pace, and he's actually half a second quicker than these two at the front, alongside the likes of Chioka, Lucchesi, as we say, Vyman. Those guys all lapping in the low 45s, everybody else in the top 10 between the mid to high 45, so those three drivers really the ones putting on a show at the moment. Here's a close battle between Martin Kenyon and I believe yes it is, it's Pierre and Martin in the battle for P2 overall in the Premier class. Let's take a look at the interclass standings. So definitely a big battle, 15 seconds ahead to the front of the grid as Bass continues that great job up front, and William Humphrey actually ahead of these guys. He's just set a purple sector 2, so he will be right on the back of Steve Rubino. He's got a bit of a gap ahead, behind these two cars, but he's right in behind Steve Rubino, just within 2 tenths. You can see him just going out of shot there as they head toward the end of the lap. And is that a mistake? I think someone's just spun round. Is that Jeremy Chioka? Who's maybe disconnected, actually, I think, Chioka. So that was a free position there for Humphrey. And side by side here, that's Francois Brandet out of class battling with some of the elite guys, but sensibly drops back in behind him.
Yeah, and Brandet, again, doesn't really want to be giving up too much, does he? I mean, he comes into this race with a 62-point lead in the championship, and he's going to be extending that even further. Despite the fact that his closest rival, John Ludbrook's in second, it's still going to go out by an extra 5 points if Brandet can win this race. He's got 133 points, Brandet does, to Dale Williams in third. Just to give you a perspective at how good he has been. 4 wins, 2 second places, a 4th and a 5th in 8 races for our championship leader, and he's looking to make it 5 wins out of 9. In his home event here at Magny Cours, so he's looking very, very strong indeed. On the flip side, in the elite class, as we see Sarah Cadesla fighting with Rob Smith through the, they're going side by side in towards this tightening left-hander, nearly 3 wide actually, as they make their way through this 180-degree corner, but I think Sarah Cadesla's going to be able to come out in front. Curler and Larson are fighting side by side as well. Rob Smith is in here alongside, I think that's one of the Evo drivers latching onto the back of the grouping, but this is a big old scrap for some important positions where some of these drivers are looking to gain some spots. Of course, Curler getting his first podium of the season in the last race, getting his first top 5 of the season in the last race, and he's looking to repeat the feat again, but he's got Jonas Larsson, Rob Smith fighting it behind, and Rob Smith is looking to try and gain himself up into P3 in the championship at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's Robin Noel Brown of the Evo class, currently in P4 in class P18 overall. That's the car 4 back, the BMW, so he fancies his chances maybe to stay with these guys, but not too much on the offer. This is a massive battle for P2 in the Premier class, from Pierre Bourgs down Martin Kenyon, Sarah Cadesla, Collar, Larson and Smith down in P7 in class P17 overall. So many opportunities here as we just cross into the halfway point of this race, and we've got Pierre ahead who's going side by side. He's got Martin Kenyon for company. Kenyon sticks ahead as they head toward turn 4 and now turn 5. I think this is going to be a position gain for Kenyon. He might return to the racing line, but he's not quite far enough ahead. Bit of damage on the front of that Porsche actually, so maybe a little bit of downforce lost in a straight line. Bit of drag. Kenyon probably allowed him to get ahead there, and he's extended that gap quite quickly at the exit of turn 5. So that is Martin Kenyon up to P2 in class, and really the best that he's going to be able to do with Bas Chalistra all the way at the front. And they are actually going side by side here. Bas not giving this up, even though it's not his class. He's willing to risk contact for the sake of winning the race overall. And frankly, if I had lasted at the front of the race, out of class, leading the entire field, more than half race distance, I probably wouldn't want to give this up either.
Yeah, no, this is a golden opportunity for him to try and, not just take the win in class, but take the win overall. But here comes Ottens to the inside. More of a feign, but it's made Bas go deep. He's going to lose 1, he's going to lose 2. And through goes Ryan Ottens. Oh, I thought Chalcroft was going to come through. There he is. I think he will. And now here comes Jeremy Allemans to pick up P3. It's all gone slightly wrong for Bas Chalistra in the grand scheme of things of winning the overall race. But he's still got a 15.5 second gap to P2 in class. They'll make their way through turn 1. Ben Chalcroft is through. And Chalcroft can now try and chase down Ryan Ottens for what would be Chalcroft's first win of the season, and first podium of the season, or Ryan Ottens' second win of the season.
Yeah, it did all unfold slightly there for Bas, but again, I loved the heart that he had there, defending against Ottens, not making it easy for him. But unfortunately, it's gone from first to fourth as he just comes off the throttle a little earlier than you would expect, just to let these guys through nice and safe. And let's see, the gap to Litas is non-existent. He's got him right in his gearbox now, so that's going to be another elite driver. All of a sudden these guys are going to come swamping past him, and he's got Lucchesi just 2 seconds away, and his pace currently actually matching, so not too bad. In fact, no, he's not, sorry, that's the wrong guy. He's half a second quicker is Lucchesi, so Bas will have him in his gearbox not so long as he goes around the outside. Again, not giving up any of these positions. Loves some hard racing. Litas might be getting a little bit frustrated, thinking, come on, man, you're not in my class. As he gives him a little bit of a weave, trying to put him under pressure, maybe a little bit of a dummy move as they headed through the chicane. Not enough to put him off, and this is kind of where it all went wrong for Bas as he exited this corner, and then by the time they crossed the line, he'd gone from P1 to P4, and is that the run for Litas? Possibly. Let's see, not quite. He might make a lunge into 15. Let's see what happens.
I think if I was Bas at the moment, I would just be a little bit more conservative with how I'm driving. Here comes Litas to the inside. That is a big old send. He's pushed wide Bas into the final couple of corners. Will gain the position. Bas won't be pleased about that. It was a bold, brave move, and he's got it done. But if I was Bas, I'd just really kind of sit where I am. You don't really want to be risking anything now. He's got the class win in the grasp of his hands, but he's still fighting Luke Lucchesi through the opening turn. Luke should get this one done before they get to turn 3, and he will get through. And now it's on Jimmy Vyman to try and make the move, but Luke has still not got this one done, and Bas is just fighting with everybody at the moment.
Yeah, I absolutely live for this kind of stuff. They'll all be getting so frustrated with him, knowing that he's in the Premier class, but I love it. Let's go. Lucchesi going to have to go around the outside at turn 5 if he wants to get this move done. And to be honest, oh, that's so late on the brakes by Vyman. Big mistake. He actually makes contact with both of those drivers there, just the G-League machine. Everyone survived it. That's going to be slight front and rear damage for all those drivers involved. And that is actually Francois Brandet, who leads the Evo class, now in behind Bas Chalistra. So we've got 2 of our class leaders fighting inside the top 7 positions on track at the moment. Yeah,
it's really, really difficult if you're one of these Premier elite drivers trying to get through the Premier. Well, man, Bas Chalistra, I was going to say guys, but really it's just Chalistra at the moment. You can see that gap to Kenyon has crumbled at the moment. It's down to 7.4. It was 13 not too long ago. It's nearly halved. So Bas really does need to be careful because there is still 9 minutes of this race left to run. But at the moment, Francois Brandet is one of the drivers that's going to be trying to chase him down. There's a car off in the background. Is that Jonas Larsson? It is Jonas Larsson spinning around as they come out of the 180 corner. I'm not too sure why he's gone around there, but he's going to drop down a few positions. He may look like he's getting going okay, but I'll have to see if there's any damage on that car.
Yeah, I was seeing Huss and Larsson exchanging back and forth and back and forth. Let's see what happened here. Huss through the inside at the chicane. He hangs it and Larsson thinks about a move. Has Huss maybe just clipped him on the switchback, or has he looked to hang it around the outside? Has Larsson run him off the road perhaps and been spun round for good measure? Let's see. Yeah, Huss just keep it in when he didn't really have the overlap, and that is Larsson around. I was seeing those guys tussling up and down the timing sheets, and then all of a sudden the gap was huge again, and that was because Larsson had been spun around into the gravel trap, but that's okay. He got himself going again. We got Ben Chalcroft, who's actually taken the position off Ryan Ottens. Let's quickly see how that happened as they headed, I believe this will be into turn 14 is that? Yes, he's just got the run. The inside line. In fact, this is turn 5, maybe even here. Very early in the lap.
Yeah.
Gets it done into the hairpin, up the inside. Very clean move and a very good way to take the lead. And he's held on to that for the time being. But Ryan still just only 3/10 behind him as we head into the final 8 minutes of the final race here tonight.
Yeah, and this is going to be absolute gold dust for Ben Shalcraft if he can hold on to this win. Of course, like I said, not got a podium so far this season, and yet he's the only driver, I think, in all classes, well, with the exception of a couple in the Evo class, he's the only driver in the Elite or the Premier class to finish inside the top 10 of every single race so far this season, and yet doesn't have a podium yet. So a win would do absolutely wonderfully for him, and it would be really good for his championship, would get himself ahead of Ryan Ottens and ahead of Justin Raymond, put him into P2 and become William Humphrey's closest challenger. So a lot on the line here for Ben Shalcraft, and he's driving away from Ryan Ottens at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a very good statistic that you just brought out there about the top drivers being outside the top 10, and I'm just seeing that now. You're totally right. He's been very consistent, P6s, 5s, 4s, and a couple 7s, and now, as we say, 6.5 minutes to go. He's under pressure from a very quick driver. I must say, Ryan Ottens has always been there or thereabouts in the top 5 of the elite standings in GT3s, and he's definitely going to fancy his chances to get his second race win of the season and what will be his 5th podium. So it's a man without a podium and a man with plenty of podiums going toe-to-toe in these final few laps for the race lead. And I'm going to cut back to William Humphrey, who might have an opportunity to get past Bas Schliestra as he heads into turn 5. Yes, he does. Bas gives him the room, and William returns the favour on the exit. But that is Will up into P6 overall, and P6 in class.
Yeah, and looking good at the moment. Would want a little bit more, that's fair to say, but William Humphrey doing what he can do from his starting position after the reverse grid. And we'll have to see if there's any more positions gained to the end. At the moment, he could say, I mean, 1.4 behind Luke Lucchese, who's looked stout in defence, will be difficult to overcome. But he's not too far up the road, and chances are still going to be there, I'm sure, as we run our way through with only about 5 minutes left on the clock. Going to be interesting to see how many laps we still have, because of course we had that extra lap by about 10 seconds in the last race, but this race of course a little bit slower with the fighting up front and with Bas not having quite the pace that we've seen from William Humphrey, so we might get one less lap in this one.
Yeah, just riding on with Andrew, who had a bit of a disaster in the opening race, but we just catch him there with a good smile on his face, so he's loving life at the moment, currently in P4 in the Evo class, so a good return after, again, what I said was a pretty poor opening round. He got caught up in a couple of the incidents, and I think he was in the pit lane after the first few laps, but he did finish the race in the end and brought home points, I believe, in P9, but good to see. And he's on the back of Hussein Sarakadesla, out of position. He's got 3 cars behind him before the next Evo driver of Robin Noel Brown, but again a huge gap as we have, in fact, we're going to have to cut away from this actually, because I've just realised that we have Francois, John and Steve Rubino, who aren't awfully far away from one another. Those 3 cars there, the green and then the blue and then the Came blue just down there, who are going to be in for the fight at the front of the Evo class. 4.5 minutes to go and just about 3 seconds separating these 3 drivers, so one mistake can definitely open the door, and those guys will all be fancying their chances. Not quite as easy for Francois this one, I don't think, as he found in the opening race.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong there, but I don't think he'll be complaining, Francois, about leading the race, and he'll be looking to get what would be his 4th win in a row, which would be a very impressive feat. John Ludbrook trying to deny him of that, but you can see he's a little bit too far back, and you're going to be hard pressed to gain up towards the back from here, with only 3.5 minutes or so left on the clock. But we're seeing lap times about 1 minute 44, so 2 laps of course would be about the 3 minutes 30 time, and as we come towards the final couple of corners, it's going to be tight, you know, it's going to be very, very tight. 1:45.0. I think we're going to get 2 more, but it's going to be the tightest of tights to the line, I think. We're going to have to see if there's a white flag or not.
Yeah, we'll be sure to cross the line with these 2 drivers, whether it's Shalcraft or Ottens, who crosses the line first on the penultimate lap, and we'll see, are they going to get 1 or 2 more laps to go? We'll ride on, because Ryan will definitely fancy his chances. He was a 10th quicker on the last lap, and he's just set a personal best in the Sector 2 on that lap. Let's see if he can improve on, again, what we say could be one of the final few laps to go. But that Spontex machine doing very well at the front, and I must say it looks quite good at the front of the field.
It does, doesn't it? It looks quite calm as well between Chalcraft and Ottens. If you are Ben Chalcraft, you're just going to be trying to get it to the end, aren't you, really?
He totally is, and I'm not sure if we have any of his teammates with us in the session tonight, so it's all eyes on for the Spontex crew. I don't see Chaz up and down the timing sheets, and so he may be watching on and hoping that Ben can bring home that result. Did they have one win already, or no? Someone did. Which was the who was the Spontex driver who got that win? Was that in the Evo class? Not quite sure. I seem to remember one of them brought home that win, and they were reveling in that a little bit in one of the opening 2 rounds.
I'm checking now. Chaz Draycott, the Spontex guy. There it is. Ed May. Ed May got the win at Road Atlanta.
In the elite class.
And with no disrespect to him, bit of a surprise win in that one.
Absolutely. So, white flag is out already. So this is it. This is the final lap. Ryan Ottens has just one more circuit around Magny Cours to try his best. Something tells me it's not going to be enough. He's just within a second now. So he's dropped off the back ever so slightly. And Ben Chalcraft put in a lap just 4/100ths of a second quicker. So these guys lapping very, very similarly at the moment. But it's not going to be enough, I don't think, to overcome that battle. We've got a 3-car battle here between Pierre Bourget Corley and Jimmy Vyman. And that's Jimmy Vyman who's going to go up the inside. And that's a battle for position. That's P6 in the elite class, which has just been stolen away from the Aston Martin back to the Porsche of Jimmy Vyman. He's up into P6. However, Jay's not going to let this one go too easily. He's going to fight this one, and he's going to look to hang it around the outside. He's got that Porsche with that front damage, which might just slow him down ever so slightly. Is he going to look to get the switch back? No, he hangs it around the outside. Can't get the move done. That might be Jimmy Vyman now, staying in that position until we reach the checkered flag. Let's ride on board with these guys just for a little bit longer, but let's not forget that Ben Chalcraft is entering the final sector now. He may well be about to bring home that class win. Oh, and there's contact. Oh. And Jimmy Vyman is off the road and around. That's Jay Corley into his rear, but we've lost their feed. So we'll cut back to these guys as they approach the checkered flag. It's going to be Chalcraft and Ottens and Orlemans at the moment. And there it is, bouncing over those chicanes and over the curves for one last time. It's Ben Chalcraft for Spontex Esports who wins the final race here around Magny Cours, and Ryan Ottens brings home a P2 finish. There's Jeremy Chioka, and here's Bash Shalistra. What a race he had, putting on some great entertainment for us. And once again, Francois Brandet really high up in the pack. That's P7 overall and P1 in the road. Steve Rubino already pulling over to the side. He's come home in P2 in the Evo class. Here's Martin Kenyon, P2 in the Premier class. These guys are all finishing very close to one another. John Ludbrook has already bailed off to the pit lane, but he came home to round off the podium in the Evo division. And here's Dennis Collar, who wraps up what has been another podium for him. And I'm not sure if he's had anything before. He's not inside the top 12 in the Premier division, so I don't have that information available to me. But a good result for Dennis Collar nonetheless. And what a nice racing that was.
Yeah, a good night for Dennis Collar, actually. I mean, coming into this race, or coming into this event, I should say, best result of the season was only 9th. He's got 2 third places to walk away from Magny Cours with. So, very, very nice night for him. But also, shout out to Steve Rubino there, P2 in the Evo class, and P8 overall, really kicking his championship aspirations, or at least P2 aspirations, back into life.
Totally, and now we watch Ben, who's absolutely lapping this up. He's going to do his full in-lap, his full parade lap. Shame that he doesn't have any of his other compatriots of Chaz Draycott or Ed May alongside him. That would be a lovely image to see, but nonetheless, he's going to bring it all the way back to the pit lane, and once he does, we can bring you the race results. So congratulations to Ben. We've got some support for him in the chat. In fact, he's not bringing it into the pit lane. He's going to go all the way around. Is he going to give us a donut? Yes, he is. Here we go. Making the most of this. He's not just going to return to the pit lane. He's going to give us a handful of donuts. And he's doing them quite well there, staying right in the middle of the circuit. Love to see that.
Better than what I could do, and that's why he's won the race. And I'm up here talking about him winning the race. Oh, nearly hits the wall. That wouldn't be fun. He did a few. He did a good few though, didn't he? Is he going again? No, he's doing a burnout. He's ticking off all of the check boxes.
all the boxes, yeah. And where's he going to go? We may as well. There we go. I think that's going to be it. Surely, there he is, back into the pit lane. Awesome job by Ben, and love that right at the end there. We've still got Dennis Collar and Matt Stace who are making their way around as well. And then as soon as these guys get off the track, we can bring you the final results. In fact, we can do that already, which is good news.
Can we?
So let's begin with the elite class. So it's Ben Chalcraft, as we've just said. We've just seen all that celebration for the Spontex CDM esports team. He brings home his first win of the season. Closely followed by Ryan Ottens, who put up a good fight, initially led the race after taking past Shalistra about halfway through, but in the end couldn't keep Ben behind. He finishes in second place for Alpha 1 esports. It's Jeremy Orlemans, who equally does very well to get himself on the podium as well, and that is his first podium of the season, so congratulations to Jeremy. Luke Lucchese, still, that P1 eludes him, and a podium finish not on the cards in the feature race tonight, but nonetheless, P4, very strong result. William Humphrey next, he's in P5 alongside Sebastian Bonnet and Jay Corley. Jimmy Vime in the top 8 for G League. Jeremy Litas and Jeremy Chioka once again finishing side by side. The two Jeremys started the race, finished the first race, and finished the second race side by side each other in the top 10. James Peace and Matt Hoyland down there, unable to finish actually, alongside Chioka, who finished 10 and 11 laps down, respectively.
And over in the Premier class, it was Bash Ilstra who won the race. Not quite the 20 seconds that we saw earlier from Mike Murphy, but good enough to see Bass winning the race and taking home the full complement of 50 points. Martin Kenyon picking up a really important P2 for his championship aspirations, but also a great podium once again from Dennis Curler, who made it 2 from 2 this evening in P3. Pierre Borsk wasn't too far back in his home event, but Hussein Sarakadessa recovered from P11 in the class in the first race to get P5 in race number 2. Rob Pickle was in P6, not too far back, with Jonas Larsen after his spin 7th, Matt Stace in 8th, and Rob Smith on the lead lap in 9th. Mike Murphy, our championship leader, was a lap down but still got 10th ahead of Henry Coolan, who was also a lap down. Bradley Flanagan was 2 laps down, and then our drivers who won't be getting any points this evening, finishing too far back: Robin Aston, Rob Mackay, James Bostock, and Josh Ostick, who didn't have the best of races.
Absolutely. And finally then, wrapping up the results for the evening, it's Francois who continues his incredible run of form. That's now 4 race wins in a row and 5 in total, only finishing outside the podium twice so far this season. So he will extend the gap at the front of the championship and stands on the top step of the podium for DXT Emerald. A great result for Steve Rubino, who gets his second podium of the season for Flat Cap Racing, and John Ludbrook rounding off the podium for Kameh GP2 McLaren. Andrew Fellows recovered well after a poor start in the opening round. He finishes P4 ahead of Luis Nevea, the privateer, in P5. Robin Noel Brown and Steve Ewing P6 and P7. And Danny Weir, Ashley Brooks and Matthew Noel in the top 10. And by the looks of it, all of those guys will bring home the points, with Ashley and Matthew finishing just 1 lap down, but still enough to bring home points worth the top 10, which from memory I think is worth 18 points or maybe a few more. So a good haul for those guys, even though they finish a lap down. Still a good return all in all. So there we have it then. That is the 3 results wrapped up. And we can now head over and try and give these guys a couple of interviews. Hopefully, Dara, you see that we have some of these guys waiting to speak to us. So I'm going to head back into the replay file. And yeah, we can give these guys a couple of minutes to answer some questions.
And then we are going to start with our overall championship leader in the elite class, the number 1 man in the championship overall, and that is, of course, William Humphrey. A win for you tonight, William. Of course, race number 2, P5, still good result, and you're still extending that championship lead. You're going to leave Magny Cours with an 82-point advantage at the top of the tree. I mean, you must be still feeling pretty good after that result tonight.
Yeah, I just calmed down a bit, but overall I think I'm happy. race 1 went better than I expected. The Casey looked very fast towards the end. Race 2 wasn't the best, but I still think I managed to take away some good points.
Yeah, well, mate, another great result. As we say, the race 1 was a great start off the line. You were under a little bit of pressure heading toward turn 1, but in the end, you extended and extended as the guys backed into each other. And then the second race, did you have a little incident? We had a small connection problem, and it looked as though you gained some positions off the start, and then when we rejoined, you were maybe 4 or 5 places down from where we left you.
Yeah, I had a little bit of an incident, a top right-hander near the end with Jeremy, I think.
Yeah.
From my side, it seemed like he just turned in on me, but after reviewing it, it looks more 50-50 now, so I'll have a look at it later.
Nonetheless, mate, that's another very strong set of results for you, and what I'm sure will extend that margin at the front of the championships, particularly without Justin or Tristan in the session tonight. It was just Ryan Ottens and Ben Charcraft in P4 and 5 in the championship coming into tonight, who actually finished the final race there in P1 and 2. So they might have gained on you ever so slightly, but I think that first race result might have had you enough to extend that margin.
Yeah, at this point it's just more about being consistent. Just didn't do too well in the second race. But with Jeremy gone, it's really helped me this race, I think. I actually at this point I have a shot at the championship, and I'm going to keep pushing for that and hopefully bring back a trophy in a P1.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, we're nearly at the halfway point this time next week. Once we've wrapped up the 5th round, we'll be halfway through already. And as you say, it'll be yours to lose, but I've got faith. Definitely got faith.
Thanks, boss.
Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, mate, before we wrap up?
They said they kicked me out, but didn't. So my parents, I guess.
Very good.
They just let me do this and always help me pursue my hobby, and I'll turn up to this. It's great.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome to hear, mate. So thanks again for joining us, and congratulations once again. I'm sure we'll hear from you many times again before the end of the season. But for now, enjoy the rest of the week and lap up those results.
Cheers, Joe. See you later.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. See you soon.
Nice to talk to William Humphrey there. Great to hear our championship leaders' thoughts. Looking at who else we have got, I'm going to bring in our race 2 winner in the elite class, Ben Chalcraft. It's first podium of the season for you, Ben. We saw you doing everything under the sun after you crossed the line. You got some donuts, got a burnout as well. You must be absolutely delighted with that.
Good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, good one, that. Can't really complain. I know there was a bit of an incident in the middle where I thought, just as I got past Jimmy, I think he outbraked himself a little bit into the hairpin. I hope that didn't look like my fault. I think he was just going a bit deep there. And then chasing down whoever was ahead of me, and one way or another we managed to snatch a win. So absolutely thrilled with that.
Yeah, we were riding on with Bass, who was actually leading the race, but in the Premier class, and he was keeping the likes of Ottens at bay for a lot of the race. And then Ottens took the lead, and then all of a sudden, you fancied your chances. You took him, I think, going into turn 13, I think it was. And then from there, you kind of commanded the rest of the lead. You were lapping at a similar pace from the most of the final 6 or 7 laps, and you brought it home. So congratulations to you. And obviously, you now join your teammate Ed May on the list of winners. So we now need to hand it over to Chaz, don't we, I think, to get the hat-trick for your team.
Yeah, I was obviously dragging my heels a bit, being the only guy without a podium so far, so I felt I had to grab one whenever I saw the opportunity. But yeah, I mean, I know we get a bit of stick about underselling ourselves, but at least by I rating, we are, we're in the bottom quarter, so we kind of came into the season saying, every scalp that we get, every position is a victory for us, and it's just been going much better than expected so far.
Good stuff, mate. Do you have many expectations for the rest of the season? I'm not sure how you thought you'd fare when you came into this championship, but now that we're nearly at the halfway point, things start to shape up a little bit more. Do you fancy your chances at staying in that top 5? I'm sure you'll have pushed yourself further in there, but coming into tonight, you were in that top 5 spot.
Yeah, after a couple of rounds, started thinking, okay, top 10's sensible, because at some point there's got to be a dip. I think this season so far, I've been very consistent, but I've not necessarily been right at the front. Obviously, I had a bit more luck today. I think there was a couple of drivers missing. So when the opportunity is there, we'll take it. if I could stay in the top 5, I'd be absolutely thrilled. But it depends whether there's 3 or 4 guys for sure that are just outrageously quick, and if they perform and don't have incidents, then you've got to think they'd beat me over the course of a season. So I'm just trying to kind of consciously take the first race, keep that safe, because if you, especially in elite class, if you have a bad result in the first race of the night, you are so far away from the rest of the field, trying to fight your way back with such a massive grid that you've managed to put together. Get that first result in safe, and then health ladder in the next 2, or 1, or whatever we've got on that night.
Yeah, I think that's a very sensible approach, to be honest, mate, and that seems to have done you well this evening. So congratulations once again. And before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
I suppose I should say thank you to Chaz and Ed for adopting me, since as I entered as a private team and they obviously recognised the name and invited me along, even though they're not here tonight when I've won.
I know.
Not that I'm
Can you
bitter
believe
about
that? Not at all. Not at all.
There's my old teammates like Mike Murphy and some guys from the Minardi Simsport guys, people like Kenjo, people like Miles, who I also race with elsewhere, and obviously everybody involved with the organisation. It's always can be a thankless task, I know. So I think we should always appreciate you guys whenever we can. From the commentary team and from the organisation team of ESR.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I'm sure the rest of the guys in the background will appreciate hearing that as well. So, yeah, awesome, mate. Thanks for joining us. Nice to speak to you, and I'm sure, well, I hope we get another chance to speak. Feel free to drop in at any time, but obviously if you get another podium or even another race win, I hope we'll speak to you again before the end of the season.
Fingers crossed, eh?
Happy days, mate. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and lap up that result.
Cheers. Good night.
Ben Charcroft there. I don't know if Ben can still hear me, but I'll say right now, Ben Charcroft second in the championship, 1 win, the only podium he's had, and he's the only driver in the elite class to have a top 10 in all of the races so far. So if Ben, you still hear me, well done on that, and now you've got a bit of a tag on your back.
Wow, that's a good, it's a good leap actually from 5th up into 2nd, isn't it?
Yeah, massive leap from him. But great to talk to Ben in our little interview session. We've got one more elite driver, so we'll drag him in, and that is Jeremy Orlemans.
Hey!
Sorry, Jeremy. I think I dragged you in mid-sentence there. Congratulations, first podium of the season. You must be thrilled. I mean, you had a really good launch off the line, took the lead. Of course, a couple of difficulties. Bass was involved in there as well. But how are you feeling after that first podium of the year?
I can't believe it, to be honest. This was like my first season with the GT3s a couple of seasons ago, where I got a P3 on Le Mans out of the blue. Pretty much the same. I was lapping 46s, mid 46s in practice. I wasn't feeling it at all. Race 1 was horrible, and I don't know where this came from, to be honest.
So Jeremy, you must have capitalised on the reverse grid in some way, thinking, have the opening rounds of the season been less than what you expected, or have you just capitalised tonight, maybe put in a little bit more practice, and obviously you've reaped the benefits?
Not at all. This is out of the blue. I think the planets aligned, and I had luck with me. Not gonna lie, this is not my pace at all. I shouldn't be here. I'm top 10 maybe, but yeah, I know there were some incidents behind me. I have to watch it back because I thought I was involved in one. But I kept it steady. The worst thing was I was driving around with 16 incident points for the last 15 minutes.
Wow.
So
15.
I was walking on eggshells for 15 minutes. One more off track and I would have gotten a drive-through. So I had no clue.
Yeah, well, that kind of pressure holding off the likes of Lucchese and Humphrey in behind makes that even more impressive, actually, because to last half the race with only 1x remaining is quite an impressive feat, actually.
I think I have to clean up a puddle of sweat from my seat when I get up. That was I don't know where this came from, because it how do you say it in English? I was so consistent, which I'm usually not. So yeah, I don't know. Happy days.
Yeah, good, exactly, mate. Happy days indeed. So that's your first podium. Hopefully we'll see a couple more. We arrive at Laguna Seca next week. Is that a track that you're familiar with, or perhaps one of your favourites, or maybe not your favourite at all?
I think my favorite tracks are coming at the end of the season. This is just surviving, to be honest, for me. But I'm usually a second of the top guys, so this is just a once in a lifetime. So that's why I was looking forward to the interview.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you joining us, and like I say, to the other guys as well, hopefully we all share a couple more podiums and we get you guys back in. But before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Nope.
Happy days. Well, there we go. We can conclude.
It's just me, so
Just myself for holding off and for maintaining the pace. Well, that's fine. You can always do that as well. So a shout out from Jeremy to Jeremy. Good stuff, mate. Well, I hope we speak to you again, maybe when you get another podium toward the end of the season, or maybe even next week. Let's see what happens.
yes. All right. Good night, boys.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Thanks for joining us. See you soon. Well, that was
Great
good,
to be
wasn't
able
it?
Yeah, great to be able to talk to Jeremy. Clearly, very pleased with how that's gone. We've only got one driver in the interview, waiting for an interview in the Premier class, and that is our Race 2 winner, Bas Schilstra. So Bas, I'm going to drag him in. Welcome along. Once again, not the first time I've interviewed you this season, but a second place in Race 1. You've won Race 2. You're now only 29 points off the championship lead. I mean, you must be delighted. You are really in this battle now.
Yeah, again, it was a great race, a great result. I didn't expect this result because in about an hour and a half before the race start, I had to purchase the track, so I had a crash course in practicing and learning this track. So I was having low expectations, didn't have two qualifying laps. They weren't that great, guys, because I got off tracks and put down an okay-ish time. But then I surprised myself by having a good result in race 1, and that set me up for race 2.
Well, we've just heard from Jeremy that he lasted 15 minutes, half the race, with 1x left to spare. But I'm not sure if the fact that you hadn't bought the track until an hour before the session is more impressive than that. And I must say, Bas, you've you put on some great displays there. We were saying how some of the elite guys might have been hoping, come on, Bas, get out the way, let us through. But you were fighting, you were defending all the way from first. I'm not sure you finished P6 overall, so you put on a great defense and some great battles that we caught throughout the stream. So good for you. And just talk us through how that felt when you had the likes of Ottens and Lucchese, some of those really fast guys in the elite class, trying to get past you. Were you confident that you were going to be able to hang on?
Yeah, I was just trying to do whatever I could, because I mean, battling for the win overall is just. I mean, I'm going to defend then, even if I have people behind me not in my class. I'm just going to go for it. And at the start, I had Jeremy in front of me. He missed the braking point at one point. Then I took the lead, and then it was just okay. We're just going to focus on this, go for it, and see what people behind me do, how they try to go for it, if they go for it, and just try to respond to that. I mean, I did learn a lot. Ryan is just quick as hell. He's just so fast, and I surprised myself by hanging on to the lead as long as I did, because I knew at some point Ryan was going to go for it. But yeah, when he went for it, I just dropped like a brick. But yeah, I was looking at the relative, seeing if anyone else from my class was nearby. But yeah, apparently I had a pretty big lead, and yeah, that just put the pressure down a little bit and allowed me to ease on. And I was just very happy with P6 overall, because I had a big win in the standings in my own class. So that's all that matters.
Yeah, and as Dara alluded to, you're now very, very close in behind Mike Murphy for the lead of the championship. So we arrive at Laguna Seca this time next week. Is that a circuit that you think you can put on a similar display, or maybe one of the weaker tracks? I know between drivers it can be a very favourite or not so good.
Well, I do like the track. I don't know if the track likes me that much, so we'll have to see. I'm not planning to do the Magny Cours approach, like purchase the. Well, it's a free track, but like have a crash course in practicing the track like an hour before the race. So I'll try to not do that again. But I'm just gonna have to practice a little bit more and see how we get on in the BMW. GT4s at Laguna is not something I have done before, I think. Not in a while, so I just have to prepare and see how we get on, and just go in with like a blank mind, and that has been the approach for every race this season, and that seems to have been working out.
Yeah, you make a good point. I was just about to mention the BMW. There was only 3 of you on the track in the BMW, and it'll be interesting how that handles around Laguna Seca as we approach the halfway point of the season. So, Bas, thanks once again for joining us, and as always, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
always Vortex Racing, my team. They were watching and trying to cheer us on. We have 2 cars in the race now, so they were a good support. And yeah, shout out to you guys from ESR, because it's been a blast this season, and the broadcasts have been great as always. So thank you guys.
No, I appreciate that, mate. And yes, all the guys that work behind the scenes as well. It's not easy, and I know James does a lot that even some of us guys don't see. So, yeah, it's a great setup that we've got here, and we're going to continue to make changes and definitely improve as the seasons go on. So, yeah, I appreciate that, and good to see some of the new guys getting involved and with the interviews and getting up there right at the front of their respective classes. So, I appreciate that, Bass, and hopefully we'll speak to you once again before the end of the season. I'm sure we will.
Hopefully. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, man. Have a good night. Okay.
Then. Yeah. Great. He's always happy, isn't he, Bass? It's always great to talk to Bass Shilstra. He's always positive. And yeah, always great to talk to him. Before we get in our championship leader in the Evo class, we've only got 2 drivers to interview. We'll firstly quickly have a quick chat with Andrew Fellows, who joins us now. Evening, Andrew. Welcome in once again. I feel like I'm quite enjoying our weekly updates from you now. Not the easiest of evenings, it's fair to say. Not the biggest of grids either, but still getting closer to the likes of Dale Williams and Steve Rubino in the championship. You come out of this race 5th in the championship, so still a decent enough day. How you feeling?
Yeah, not too bad. Beginning of the week, I was not optimistic. I say beginning of the week. Today is the beginning of the week. A couple of days ago, I was doing 48s, and I was like, that's not fast enough. Francois was too quick. But I managed to get in the 45s in practice. So race 1 went well for the first few corners. So I avoided all the carnage, but then I got spun out and put into the barrier. So trip to the pit lane. Unfortunately, there was a lot of people diving for the pit lane, and my view got blocked, and I missed my pit box because it was like the first or second one, which then meant I towed. So I was a lap down. So that was me out of the game. But race 2, some good fights to be fair in race 2 with Rob Mackay and just trying to catch people. Started 8th, finished P4. So I think I made 20 positions overall. I think that was pretty decent to be fair.
Yeah, we were talking about that. It's good to see that you managed to recover the second race, obviously finishing in P4. The first race, I think you were P9, which was potentially the last car. You did cross the line though, right, Andrew? You didn't finish in the pit lane. I think you did come back out and cross the line, right?
Yeah, it was only 1 lap down.
Okay,
yeah, I crossed the line and had a little battle 1 lap down with Mr. Bostock. So that was quite fun. You know, I didn't want to compromise his race, but at the same time, trying to enjoy myself at the same time. So,
yeah, good. So 4 races down, 6 to go. How have you felt? That's you've got 1 win to your name and another podium, obviously at Road Atlanta. So, a couple of times, you know, I think if you can iron out these slight errors that you seem to be having, you know, I'm seeing a P10, P14, but you've definitely got the pace to be right up there and challenge for. I'd say, you know, let's try and get your hands on one of the trophies maybe this season.
Yeah, I definitely think I've got the top 5 in me. I'd like to think I should be challenging for the top step, but Francois is really quick at the moment, and he's not getting involved in anything. So I think if I'm right in saying he's won the last 4 on a bounce.
Yes.
Whereas while he's been winning, I've been caught in instance like last week in the start line, got caught up, and then obviously tonight caught up in lap 1. So if I can get Lady Luck on my side and actually not be caught up in instance, a bit like TCR last season, then I've got half a chance. But hopefully it evens itself out. I mean, you don't wish bad on anyone, but I'm sure Francois will probably get caught up in the odd thing at some point. You'd think evening it out throughout the championship, but obviously I don't wish bad on him.
No, well, as we said last weekend, you know, things come and go, ebbs and flows, as we said. So, you know, maybe it wasn't your chance fully this week, but yeah, I think it might not be smooth sailing the whole season for Francois, but you never know. He has been very competitive. I know he's been putting in the practice, so it's paying off for him at the moment, but you're definitely there or thereabouts. So, yeah, congratulations for this result in the second race. And as always, before we let you go, anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Shout out to you guys as usual. Francois, obviously, for doing a really good job. My teammates, Flatline, Rob and Jonas and Lewis are doing really well. We're all pushing each other each week to try and get faster and faster. And yeah, bring on the rest of the season. It's tracks that I've actually raced a bit more on. Hockenheim got a win there last season in TCR, so that I'm looking forward to that one. So yeah, should be good.
Good stuff, man. Well, thanks for joining us once again, and enjoy the rest of your week. I'm sure we'll speak to you this time next week.
Yep, thank you. Cheers, guys.
Good stuff, man. See you soon.
Cheers, see you soon.
Andrew Fallows then, a driver who is looking to get a little bit further up in the championship in the final couple of weeks, but he's going to have to catch the championship leader. We've saved the most informed driver in the entire, in all three classes to last. It's Francois Brandon. Now, Francois, before I ask you a question, I'm just going to read you out a couple of stat lines here. We've had 9 races this season. You've won 5 of them. You've come second in 2 of the others, and you finished in the top 5 in the other 2. You lead the championship by 72 points. And you're the only driver to have won both races at the Hungaroring and at Magny Cours. So, with all that said, when are you going to race that championship? I mean, what round are we looking at the moment?
I'm so appreciative of what's going on with me. Like, I practice a lot, so it's fun. It's nice to see it's paying off. It's also nice to see that after what I would call a poor start to my GT3 season, I'm getting a bit of success in my GT4 season. Keep the morale high, and yeah, it's great. Tonight I finished in the race 7th, I think overall, and that's my record. So I'm very proud tonight.
Yeah, mate, you seem to be not to say that you're having an easy time of it, but you don't seem to be getting caught up in too many incidents from what I'm seeing. You qualify well, you get away well, and I think there was a time when you were right up close behind either 2 elite drivers or 2 premier drivers, and again, similar to last week, I think, or maybe the week before, you just sat pretty in behind them. You weren't trying to do too much, trying to lunge in and get involved in different classes. I think you know what you're doing this season, and the results speak for themselves, don't they, at the moment? You're definitely the driver in form, probably on the whole grid, let alone in your own class.
Yeah, it's great because also my teammates are having a lot of success. Race 1, Mike, you won in Prem. Race 2 got a lot less lucky, or I would say, because I think he got hit from behind and spun, and the blip also did not help him a lot. But yeah, at one point during race 2, I think I was sitting behind William and Luke, and I was like, oh, that's Luke Lucchese in front of me. I'm normally eons away from these guys. So yeah, I just felt great. I knew that, like, without trying to sound cocky or some shit, because it's not how I see myself, but I knew that if I could keep it clean and hit my marks, I would be a bit faster. So I just focus on that really. I got a bit frustrated race 1 behind Bass, but props to him for defending. But at one point, I think that battle made us lose like 10-ish seconds. But I still managed to have a decent enough gap to the cars behind to get away with both wins tonight. And like the good thing also for me is that it's never the same driver finishing second. They're having quite the wild fight behind me at the minute, so I'm just hoping it will go on like that. I know John is there, he has the pace. I know Hanju as well, and some other guys. Lewis, last week he was quick around Hungary, but they're not getting very lucky at the minute. Matthew finished second in race 1, but he got, I think, killed in race 2. So yeah, I think I'm using all of my luck now, and I hope it's gonna run till the end of the season, because if not, I'm really in trouble.
No, I think you're totally right, and yes, you make a good point. 7 podium sitters in the top 11, all sort of taking the share of those P2s and P3s while you're lapping up the race wins. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and I'm sure you'll be within a good chance of a bit of a trophy haul. In terms of the teams, just briefly as well, you and Mike have obviously extended that lead. It's no Stephen tonight, but you came into the night 100 points clear, and all the teams in behind you down until P6, I think, were missing at least one driver, and so you and Mike have definitely extended that lead. So could be a bit of a trophy haul for you by the end of the season. A long way to go yet, still 6 weeks to go, but I think this is probably the best you could have asked for heading into the halfway point of the season.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's even more than I could ask for because I would never had imagined that I could be there fighting for wins week in, week out. It's a great feeling, you know. Even if I don't win, most of the battles I'm having at the minute are very enjoyable. I'm getting lucky, so I'm not getting caught in a lot of accidents. So I'm really loving my time around here. Obviously, when you win, it's a bit easy to say that, but like even the few races I didn't win, I had a great time, and I just wanted to keep it that way.
Good stuff, Francois. Well, always good to hear, and always good to hear from you as well. So before we go, anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, as always?
Yeah, quick shout out to my DXT teammates. They have not had their best night of racing, I would say. But you know, we try to move on. We have a dropped round as well, so it's okay. We move on. And yeah, Mike for winning race 1. Martin had decent finishes in race 2. And yeah, hopefully next week is as good as the previous 2 for me. And obviously, like, shout out to you guys for a great cast as always.
I appreciate that, mate. And yes, so all good. Good luck for next week. And yeah, thanks for joining us once again.
Yeah, cheers, lads.
Cheers, mate.
That's all of our interviewees this evening, Joe. I've got no one else left in the waiting for the interview channel. That means that we've got through everybody who wanted to have a chat with us.
That's very good, and some good interviews, and particularly for me, a very good broadcast, I think. No, sorry, I don't mean that about myself. I just mean we've covered a lot. We've had some good action, and just want to clarify, we've had some good action. You know, we've had some good interviews there, and it feels like a very conclusive night. One blip, but that's to be expected in a way. So very good then, Dara. I'll let you give some closing remarks, and then we'll go ahead and sign off.
Yeah, well, it's been a good night for Francois, of course. That championship gap is now 72 up from 52 coming into this race. William Humphries is up to 82 in the elite standings. But Premier looks really quite interesting. We've got Mike Murphy and Bash Ilstra, first and second, 29 between them. Martin Kenyon isn't a million miles away. He's 59 back from Bass. And then we've got quite a tight gaggle. Rob Pickle, Rob Smith, Stephen Donnelly, Hussein Sarkadesla. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how we go in Laguna Seca. Of course, we're going to go back to the 15-minute and then 45-minute race format, which could favour our championship leaders and favour some better qualifiers. So looking forward to that, and it could be a bit of a carnage race as well.
Yes, absolutely, mate. And as we say, getting there now. By this time next week, we'll be halfway through. We'll start seeing how the table is going to emerge. And before we finish then, let's just wrap up with our closing information. So if you guys want to get involved with ESR, you can go ahead and scan the QR code on screen now, and you can join our community of nearly 500 members. We've gone a bit conservative with 400, but we are closing in on 500 by the day. Very, very friendly, like-minded sim racers, as we say there, always up for help, whether it's track guides or setups or general sort of PC guidance or anything like that. So if anybody's interested, feel free to join. We have waiting lists open for Mondays and Thursdays, and as we say, we're 6 weeks away now from the end of the season, and so about 2 months away before we get underway with a brand new set of seasons. 7:30 UK time, practice opens, and we usually get underway at about 8:15 for the start of race 1. Qualifying underway about 8 o'clock every Monday and every Thursday. GT3 and GT4 at the moment. So again, scan the QR code and you can join us. So that'll be it for us tonight. As we say, 4 rounds under the belt. We head to Laguna Seca for the 5th round before Hockenheim, Portimao, Red Bull Ring, Sebring, and then Zolder to wrap up what will be 10 weeks of great GT4 action. So as always, from myself and from Dara, I'm sure we've all enjoyed tonight's racing, and we'll catch you all this time next week as we reach the halfway point of the season. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you all next week.